Hi, it's Dave. The following is a conversation I had with Galileo Russell, or otherwise known as Gali. He runs a YouTube channel and podcast called Hyperchange, where he talks about investing into innovative companies like Tesla. When I approached Gali, I asked him if he would be open to do a 2 or 3 hour long conversation, kind of like in the style of Joe Rogan. So what follows is a laid back conversation on a multitude of topics, going from YouTube to New York, Seattle, Bitcoin, AI, the election, Tesla, and a whole host of other topics. I hope you enjoy this conversation. All right, here we have Gali Russell from Hyperchange. How are you doing, man?
Great. How are you doing?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
All right, so you're in Seattle right now. What's your situation?
Yeah, so I was living in New York when the coronavirus hit. That's where I lived. I went to
Mhm.
NYU, and then I just kind of like started road tripping across the country, and then haven't
Yeah.
stopped. So I went to like Milwaukee or Wisconsin, and then drove all the way to Seattle, and now I'm in Seattle, just kind of cruising around. So
Okay. How long are you there for?
potentially forever. I think I might
Really?
relocate to Seattle. Honestly, a news
Nice.
bomb right there. Hyperchange HQ could be relocating. Yeah.
Hey, pretty crazy. I actually might relocate to Seattle as well.
No way.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
epic.
yeah, we were looking to check out some houses there last month, and then my mom got sick in SoCal, so we had to come down in an emergency. But we're trying to plan to check out some houses up there as well pretty soon.
Dude, you should.
Yeah.
I grew up in Seattle, so that's why
Oh,
I'm a little
okay.
bit biased, but I
Nice,
love
nice.
this city. Like, so much trees, so much innovation. Like, the startup culture is off the
Yeah.
chain.
I mean, the nature up there, the national parks, the lakes, the oceans, like that just like it's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of
Yeah.
hiking.
Yeah. So, what neighborhood are you staying in? I'm gonna stalk you. No, just
Capitol
kidding.
Hill, around the Capitol
Capitol Hill.
area.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know the neighborhood, so we're gonna have to spend like a few weeks or a good month or two up there kind of checking out places and stuff.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say Capitol Hill's like, I love it. It's like cool, kind of like trendier, like coffee shops, bars, lots
Yeah.
of amazing food. Kind of feels like Brooklyn almost. I don't know.
Uh-huh. Cool. So, I'm with New York. Were you studying in New York or were you just living there, or what was your kind of
Yeah,
time in New
so
York?
I went to Garfield High School here in Seattle,
Hmm.
graduated, went to NYU in 2011, and then
Okay.
graduated in 2015 and stayed in the city and just kept working there.
Got it. Got it. So, what made you kind of wrap up your time in New York?
I was stuck in my apartment for 3 months in a row when the coronavirus happened, and I
Yeah.
couldn't leave. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I just was trapped. And New York, it's such a vibrant city. Like everything happens outside of your apartment, shows, comedy, like comedy clubs, like one of my favorite things to
Yeah.
go do, and like that's all closed. So I felt like the New York that I moved for kind of I don't know. It was fizzling. And then it's like New York, I come to San Francisco and Seattle. It's like I'm meeting all these tech people who like get what I'm doing. They're really excited
Yeah.
about it. They take me seriously. In New York, like yeah, I live next to the Citibank building. I just see these guys with suits come out every day. Like they don't get hyperchange. They're all doing stuff that I think is super boring and a waste of time. Like
Yeah.
just that entire kind of East Coast culture. And I feel like it's dying. It's all based on like a legacy financial system. So I just got this kind of like I just feel like the innovation excitement has kind of moved to the West Coast. And I actually think Seattle, like in
Yeah.
terms of cities, I mean, San Francisco, we all know is so important, Silicon Valley, but in terms of
Yeah.
cities that could be like a global power, really, I see rising and emerging over the next couple decades. I think Seattle's like at the top of the list. And so,
Yeah.
whereas I think New York and Manhattan could potentially be in decline.
Okay. I mean, I've heard New York's like tech scene was, decently booming, like with, Etsy and um, what other companies? There's a bunch of tech companies. I mean,
I love
yeah.
Say. They're based
Uh-huh.
in, they were like right next to me. I could walk to their office. I love that.
I mean, were you able to like connect with the tech scene out there?
Yeah, so
Hmm.
Say is one example. I've had a couple meetings. The Public app is like kind of a
Hmm.
Robinhood competitor, a
Yeah.
little more like better morals and long-term focus. So I love what they're
Uh-huh.
doing. That's another New York startup that's really
Yeah.
cool. I like the scene, but like we're video creators. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like I was traveling to San Francisco, I was traveling to Seattle, I'm traveling to LA to meet
Yeah.
all these companies. Like, now with Corona, you can kind of do your job online. So I would say
Yeah,
like
that's true.
it's not really an advantage to be in New York. Like there's more startups happening in Seattle and SF, even though there are
Yeah.
some.
Yeah. I mean, Seattle is like booming with like every tech company setting up, bigger and bigger headquarters.
Dude, yeah, it's not just like Amazon and the
Yeah.
Seattle companies, but like you're saying, like SpaceX, I think their
Hmm.
Starlink thing is in Redmond. Like
Yeah.
Google has a huge HQ. Facebook just bought a huge HQ. Um, Yeah, it's totally booming, and I get
Yeah,
it. Like everyone's coding because they're all just it's raining outside, so you just sit inside and
yeah,
code and
yeah,
drink coffee, I guess, or
yeah,
invest. You know.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've read a lot about just like Manhattan just like being different, you know. I mean, and people don't know when it's coming back because like so much of the city was dependent on density, you know, people being together,
Yeah.
you know, in restaurants and clubs and all this stuff. And now it's like, you know, it's changed, you know?
And I'm fascinated by James Altucher put out this thing about Midtown. So Midtown is
Uh-huh.
like super high rents and everyone works there. But now if you're working remote, maybe you don't need to go to Midtown. The restaurants can't afford rent. So you might have this like dead zone in the middle of Manhattan. And
Uh-huh.
I was literally walking through Midtown to my from my place in Soho up to the Upper
Mm-hmm.
West Side to my friend's apartment, like
Yeah.
once or twice a week to just walk to their apartment because I didn't want to take the subway. And I
Yeah.
could see every week going by, like this is right, March, April, but you could just see like there's no business, there's no commerce. Like the only people there are homeless, like totally different vibe than the Midtown I was used to. And I almost was like, I hate walking through Midtown now. It used to be my favorite part of the walk. And
Yeah.
so just little things like that. But I'm really hoping that like New York comes back and like Jerry Seinfeld's right, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Also, but Mark Cuban, did you hear what he wrote? Like
No,
they
I
got
didn't.
yeah, they got into like a Twitter thing with I think James Altucher, he was like New York is dead, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote this article and then Mark Cuban is saying like, "Hey, I don't think so. You know, it's like rents are dropping and you know, it'll attract young people back again, basically. It'll become more affordable, right? And there'll be a whole new crop of young people flocking to the city eventually in a few years. And so I don't know. Cuban was like saying that he was more optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to go too much into this because we already
Yeah,
sidetracked, but one thing for me personally, like my personal health and well-being of just being
yeah,
outside and like not being trapped in this super tiny box,
yeah, yeah.
I just don't think humans are meant to be stacked up on super tiny boxes. And like
Hmm.
even just having an apartment or house where I can literally just walk around and think on a phone call instead of
Yeah,
like walking around
yeah,
my bed and like avoiding my roommate and like, it's just like
yeah,
a
yeah,
totally different lifestyle. The only thing you do in New York to meet up is drink. That's like
yeah.
there's too much of a drinking business culture. That's also something I didn't really like because there's no
Hmm.
outside. There's nowhere to meet, especially in winter, other than a restaurant or bar. And so
Yeah,
I think like the West Coast lifestyle, I loved it.
yeah.
Hiking, going
What kind
skiing.
of was your apartment pretty small? Like what was the square footage?
So, man, probably like 900 square feet
Oh,
with a
okay.
roommate.
Okay,
So
actually
like
that's pretty big.
not like a two-bedroom apartment. I don't think it was
Yeah,
that big. And I had like a living room and I
yeah. Okay.
recorded in my bedroom.
Yeah.
It's been the status quo of Hyperchange for a long time. And yeah, so now I'm kind of ready to like I want to invest in like an HQ. I'm thinking like really
Yeah,
like
yeah.
somewhere where I have a studio, and that's just really hard to afford in Manhattan, frankly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I lived in inner city LA for like 8 years or so, like smack center of the city. Like all the time I'd hear sirens and ambulances and just like crazy stuff and yeah, I mean it has its pros, but also like there's something about just like um there's something tiring about just density and the urban setting too. I mean, like I'm kind of a little bit outside of San Diego right now, about an hour, but it's like there's something I don't know what it is. I'm able to think a little bit more clearer. I think have kind of
Mhm.
perspective, you know, when I'm kind of away from people generally. And then I took it to another level, like, and we bought this RV. So this is my like mobile recording studio right now,
Oh, I've
actually.
noticed that on Twitter.
Yeah,
Driving around, that's so cool.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love
So I set this up where it's our house for half of the year. Actually, this year we're living in it about half the year, our family with two kids. Um, and then we travel around, you know, all over the place. And then I record videos here too. But there's something about like traveling and going to like awesome nature, you know? You just can't get in the city. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. Like this whole virus situation has just like totally put a roadblock into the whole like everything has to be urbanized, you know, everything has to just go up in floors. And now people are rethinking like, hey, you know, what is the best path, you know, where's the best place to live?
Yeah, we have the internet. Like we're gonna have Starlink soon. Like
Yeah,
why should we be cramming into cities like all getting up at the exact same time to go on the exact same street to sit in cars that are congested to go to this and then leave at the same time? Like we're gonna look
exactly.
back and think it was insane.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I just had Starlink, like that's the missing piece for me because I'm going
Yeah,
to
me
these
too. Honestly.
really, I'm going to these national parks and internet is the biggest pain. Like I'm having to set up this huge satellite dish and like it's a hit or miss. And most of like half the time I can't get internet because of the trees, you know? But if I have Starlink, I can literally do YouTube videos anywhere, you know? And yeah, I don't have to be anywhere. This is great.
Yeah, if imagine if that was your Tesla RV too with Starlink. Like
Seriously,
that would
yeah,
just dude.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know when. Yeah, I'm dreaming about that. I don't know when it's gonna come though. I'm not like crossing my fingers for anytime soon. But maybe the trailer. You saw that Cybertruck trailer there, right?
Yeah, that and I'm really curious because Tesla's not an accessory company. You know, they never
Yeah,
get into like accessories. They famously leave that for everybody. So the Cybertruck seems to be a clear departure from that. They have the trailer, they have the
yeah,
camping
yeah,
setup, they have the ATV, that, you know. So I feel like that's kind of, I'm really curious to see what Tesla's planning there. Are they actually going to get into all these crazy accessories for the Cybertruck, or was
yeah.
that just some fun CGI, you know?
Yeah, I mean the RV trailer, that trailer, I think they're gonna do it, you know? I mean, Elon's not the type of guy who creates a model or prototype and just tosses it, you know? I mean, I think they're gonna do it. We'll see when, you know?
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense because what am I concerned about if I get a trailer? Like it's going to hit my range. If it's not
Hmm.
aerodynamic, it's going to be heavy. Like it doesn't, my battery's not going to know how much battery I have left. It's not going to be able to calculate that. But if I have a Tesla trailer that's
Hmm.
super aerodynamic, that's built in with my battery, maybe has extra storage, like then I don't know. I feel like that's a huge, solving so many pain points at once there.
Oh yeah, like if Tesla would make a trailer that would automatically connect with the Cybertruck, you know how like right now with the trailer, it's such a pain to connect like with your truck or something, you know, it takes like 5, 10, 15 minutes sometimes. But if it can automatically just, you know, connect, like that would be game over for all trailers, you know?
Yeah,
Seriously.
and it's I was joking with my friend Julian, like when things are autonomous, could you just get like another car with just stuff to follow your
Hmm.
car around? When, like, you know, it just kind of like platoons behind your car wherever you go. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't mind like telling my autonomous Tesla RV or something like at night, say, "Hey, why don't we go to Yosemite?" And then overnight, it takes me to Yosemite. You know, in the morning, I wake up
just
and I
open
go,
it up and it's
ah,
like
"Yeah, exactly." And then
Yosemite.
it's like Yosemite or Grand Canyon. You know, it's like, "Where do you want to go today or tonight?" You know, and you just sleep in the RV, and then next morning you wake up and it's just like another great place. Um, yeah, I've thought about that.
And no, but so getting back to like the whole thing we were talking about, like the Tesla lifestyle, that's
Yeah,
another huge thing I moved is I got a Tesla. And I'm
that's
like,
right. I saw
and
that.
I can drive around like in New York, it's just I can't have a Tesla. But here it's
Uh
on the
huh.
West Coast, I drove to Battery Day, like I'm loving the freedom and like I'm exploring so much of nature that I would have never explored because I have my Tesla now
That's
sustainably. So
right. Yeah,
it's been
yeah.
awesome.
It's a Model Y, right?
Yep, Model
Model
Y
Y
in
long
September.
range.
I'm like, I don't know if it has a unibody casting, but I'm hoping
Uh-huh.
it could have a chance. Yeah, long range.
Got it, got it. Yeah, I watched one of your videos. You're just ecstatic about it.
I mean, Dave, I gotta tell you, it was better than I was expecting. Like the product
Nice,
actually,
nice.
I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah.
hyped and like
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
such high expectations, but it's totally met them and more.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's
Like
been it's yeah.
I didn't think you would need something to hype you more about Tesla.
Yeah,
But
right?
I guess the Model Y did it, you know? Yeah. Um, so I'm curious, when did you get into Tesla? When did it start for you?
Yeah, so I got into Tesla when I was in like the beginning of high school, which I think would have been 2008 or 9.
Okay.
Um, and so I was on a debate team, and the premise was how do we solve climate change or global warming at the time.
Nice.
And so we had this
What kind of debate did you do back then? W- Was it like two on
long,
two Oxford or
yeah, it was 2-on-2. Yeah,
okay. Yeah,
yeah. Shout out to AJ, my partner.
yeah, I did debate as well. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
We were like
yeah.
0 and 6. We never won a debate because we were
Hmm.
so hooked on our plan that was ridiculous and just wanted to
Uh-huh.
talk about that.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, it's I've noticed a lot of like business and investing people like debate
Uh-huh.
is like a great skill to have,
Oh
honestly.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Um, but yeah, so we debated, and our
Hmm.
plan was basically to solve climate change was to transition us off fossil fuels, of course, with
Okay.
GMO algae. And so one of my dad's friends was working at like this genetically modified algae company, working with ways to make way more like oil content, fatty oil in the algae, so we
Uh-huh.
could extract and get like so much oil out of just one tube in the desert. So we had all this science and quotes from him about this new algae technology to deploy that was genetically modified to have this crazy oil content, and then we would literally transition the whole world to this algae biofuel just with like a couple hundred miles of tubes in the Arizona desert. Nobody cares about that
Uh-huh.
anyway.
Got it. Yeah, yeah.
But But then I found Tesla and Elon Musk, and I was getting into the stock market at the same time. And like my investing mentor was like, you should check out Tesla. I just got a test drive in the Roadster. Like I won a raffle and he gave me the hat. And then I looked up and I read the master plan and I was like, oh my God, like this is way better than our debate like proposal to like fix fossil fuels. Like Elon Musk won the debate tournament already. So, and he's actually doing it. And it like, it's not tubes in the desert. It looks like sexy sports cars and like, it's fun and it's like exciting and they're, you know, and so that just got me hooked. And then I feel like Tesla is like this rabbit hole of like, once you get hooked, you just keep, you know, I'm sure you went through that too.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like this is, you said high school, right? Like beginning of high school or so for you. So I want to go back a bit. Like, where did you get kind of the initial like interest in technology or investing or whatever? I mean, was there any turning points or any like background or context even before that?
Oh yeah. So one of my uncles got me a book called The Snowball by Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
And so this was in high school. And so I read The Snowball and I was super into like collecting and buying and trading sneakers. So I would like wait outside, buy these sneakers, flip them on eBay and like reinvest those profits into 2 pairs. And so I had my own little sneaker empire, but that was just so I could get free sneakers. But that was the start of like markets. And so I read The Snowball by Warren Buffett and I was like, oh my God, like you can build wealth. It's all about compounding if I start now. Then I started Googling richest people in the world, you know, hedge fund managers. Okay, if I get really good at this, not only can I make a ton of money and have financial freedom, but like I can learn about everything. So it's a weird way for me to like buy optionality on life if I don't have to choose what I can do because I'll be super wealthy. And while I'm waiting to choose what I'm doing, I'm just learning. And so that's what I love about like investing. And I just got hooked because I think I never really bonded with school or the traditional education system, but I really bonded with like following a company as a case study and actually learning because it was real in the world. And that was so much more powerful for me. And so there's a lot of stuff that happened in between, but I like ended up getting into penny stocks, had a penny stock website.
Was this in high school?
This is in high school. And then like made a bunch of money and our parents made us shut it down. And then I started blogging for Seeking Alpha, started getting back to my Warren Buffett, like OG investor roots, and then actually found Tesla like as college started. Yeah.
So were you blogging on Seeking Alpha in high school?
Yeah, just in my senior year of high school.
Okay.
And they hated Tesla. It was impossible.
I totally know.
Articles. They're all bullish on Tesla, like at $30 a share. And they're like, so
if you got into investing, compounding, you know, all this stuff, like why didn't you take more of a typical type of career path, you know, like, I don't know, go into some, I don't know, investing firm or whatever. Question. Yeah.
So I was like, how can I say this? Okay. So I went to NYU. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do I'm going to go to Goldman Sachs. I'm going to work on Wall Street.
Wow.
Like that was my, I'm going to work for JP Morgan. Like I went to NYU Stern, you know, it's literally like a factory to pump out Goldman Sachs analysts and JP, you know, that's what everyone wants to do there.
What was your major at NYU?
Finance and entrepreneurship.
Okay, cool.
2.8 GPA.
Cool.
But so I got there and I just like, I was so disappointed because I actually loved investing. Like I had already been writing for Seeking Alpha Investing, you know, like I was like, I'm here to invest in companies that are going to change the world. Like I had already connected the dots that like that coffee that I buy at Starbucks supports this company, Starbucks, and there's a stock behind it. And there's a company behind every stock. And I want to invest in companies that are doing good in the world, not bad. And like nobody was thinking that way. It was all about how do I make money? Oh, I want to work at Goldman. They're going to slave me doing spreadsheets for like 18 hours a day. And I'm doing it to raise money for some oil company. And, you know, so you're working your ass off. Like you have insane hours. You have to forego all of your health. You let go all of your morals just to make a little bit of money. Like, and it was so cutthroat. And everybody's like, you know, I just hated the mentality. And I even I actually joined like the Quantitative Finance Society freshman year. They were really cool because they let me in. But like this is how big my beat was. By my senior year, my ideas were too radical. And even though I was there was only 2 people that got in freshman year off the bat. So it was like a big deal to get in freshman year. And I'd been in on the thing pitching Tesla at $30. Like we've been crushing it. And then they just kicked me out because I couldn't like mathematically price these bond yields. And I was like, bro, like I'm in it, like I'm doing the equity portfolio, like I'm managing growth stocks, like I don't care about bonds, like you know. But like they kicked me out. So there's just this big mentality of like, if you don't do it our way or by the books, you know, how good are you? I don't know. I'm not vocalizing it well, but I just really didn't get along with the culture. There was a huge culture clash of like, I felt like people were in it to make money, not to actually like in it for the right reasons and interested and passionate reasons. So I just went this way. And it's worked.
it's interesting. Like I totally know what you're saying. Like for me, like I've also taken kind of a atypical kind of path myself. Like I've never really like jived with like typical, I don't know, finance or Wall Street or
Yeah.
brokerage or whatever like that path. I mean, in my early days, I wanted to follow that because I thought that was the path, you know, for wealth and etc. But then like yeah, something hit me where it's like it lacks like everyone is just following like this like it feels like a bunch of zombies following like this path to just everyone just trying to make money, but it lacks like this human like feeling or relationship empathy, this other side where it's like everything is so like almost to an extreme, you know, focus so much about just the numbers and what it takes to you know build your career and get ahead and you know and it's all set up, it's all traditional, it's all like you know laid out for people and
Hmm.
and all of this stuff just like intuitively I just knew and I know that it just feels like it's missing the point. It feels like I could capture the essence of investing better outside of that circle. You know, like it just seems like a lot of times that's just noise. It's just like a smokescreen or something. You know, and without the pressures of a corporate ladder, without that culture, without that like hyper focus of just only money, like outside of that, I could see things more objectively, you know, see which companies are really going to be the big winners over the next 10 or 20 years, you know, see like what real people are thinking about products, you know, and services.
Yeah.
And
It's the secret isn't in the spreadsheet. It's in the
exactly,
real world.
yeah,
The
exactly.
secret is.
Exactly. And this whole finance world seems to be kind of out of touch with that, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why there's so many people in the finance world shorting Tesla and so negative on Tesla. Because like spreadsheet wise, like it just they couldn't figure it out, you know? It was just like this is a money sucking, you know, just terrible business. And they couldn't grasp that people loved their products, you know, and their products were just technologically just light years ahead of anyone else, you know, in the industry. And it's like that cultural like difference, that cultural like divide is so strong, and I think it showed up more than ever in Tesla in the stock, you know.
Dude, I could not agree more. Like, there's so many parts of that I agree with, but it's
Hmm.
great. Like, I had a couple interactions with David Einhorn, couple of
Hmm.
meetings with him, phone calls. Like, that to me was a moment where I like tested. I just remember testing my faith against the real old financial. Like, this is the smartest spreadsheet guy in the world that everyone thinks is dope, that everyone would leave Goldman to work for at
Hmm.
Stern. You know, like, and then I'm face to face with him in a room for like 1 hour, just him and his number two guy, just like grilling me about Tesla, how irresponsible Elon Musk is, and like how
Hmm.
they don't get it, and how demand is off a cliff, and like so I don't know. I have this weird kind of like vendetta where this whole Tesla experience, I got so close to it and I was so
Hmm.
right. Like we were so
Hmm.
right.
Hmm.
And then after that, seeing nobody capitulate and seeing like no credit be given and no like honestly respect given to the game. Like they didn't
Yeah.
care that this was one of the greatest business miracles of all time. That if you were actually a great investor and economist, you'd be studying the hell out of this because this is what they're running books on and case studies on for hundreds of years because that's how disruptive this is, and they can't see that. And so it's like the fact that even though Tesla's this far and they still don't get that, I'm like, all right, I'm out of New York. I don't have time. Like, I'm not even going to convince
Uh-huh.
David Einhorn to buy Tesla. I
Uh-huh.
tried, believe me,
Uh-huh.
and he would have done so much better if he had. But it's like, and it's like, I don't have time for this anymore. So that's
Yeah.
like, even moving to Seattle on the West Coast, I've noticed just being out of New York City, my mindset is already
Yeah.
so much more creative, so much more like looking at companies in a more healthy way. And it's really insane just how toxic that Wall Street culture is. But at the same time, I kind of love it because that's why you're doing your channel. That's why I'm doing my
Mm.
channel. Like there's this amazing rebirth of creators who are in it for the right reasons, putting out good content, doing it just the right way, and putting
Hmm.
out really good stuff. And they're like the karma's coming back to them in crazy ways. And I love it. Gives me a lot of faith and optimism to see the emergence of like what you're doing in this kind of YouTube community as well, because I feel like we're fighting that, kind of Wall Street complex.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's like seems to be an alternative investing universe springing up, you know, where it's no longer just like, you know, dictated by these big banks and whatever these analysts, but there's this whole nother, you know, crop of generation of people who, you know, don't really, I kind of see past that and, realize that it is more of like a meritocracy in terms of how you analyze, and how you discover, right, great companies. And so I love it. Like for me, it's like I love it if I can when I find like a great YouTube channel that doesn't have many subscribers and just like the guy has or the gal has some amazing insights, And I'm like anyone can do it, And if you've got the stuff, if you've got the insights and you've got like an angle that's unique, then it's an open world for people.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity. I love that. Like, there's never been a better time to be the next Buffett. And, the tools at your disposal for YouTube. And yeah, a part of me is like, I wish we could talk about what I'm going to announce next week because I feel like it's tying into this. But it's like,
no worries. I remember back in like 2012 and 2013, Tesla was at $30, so $6, pre-split. And like I had run out of money because, basically I'd put it all into Tesla, and I would stay up at night and I would tell my wife, I'm like, where can we get more money, right? It's like, this is the best investing opportunity I can even imagine. And I'm like, if I was Warren Buffett, like it's a no-brainer to put $1 billion into Tesla because Tesla was $3.5 billion in market cap. He could get like 30% of the company for just $1 billion, right? So, and there was like a period of like 2 or 3 weeks where I'm like, why doesn't Buffett or anyone else just put in $1 billion and take 30% of the company? You can have as much as Elon Musk, just for $1 billion. And it's funny because like I look back at that now, this is like what, 2020, so it's like 7 or 8 years later. And it makes more sense now. It makes more sense that it's not it's not just that they didn't see the opportunity. It's the whole culture of what Tesla was, in terms of a very innovative like CEO out of the box, a crazy innovative product, just crazy fans who love the product, and a crazy vision, to change the world forever. All of these things, just the typical finance world and the spreadsheet world, they can't grasp it. It just doesn't fit, It's just too risky in every single category. And there's like, it takes kind of like a departure from the culture of, I think, kind of the whole typical finance Wall Street world to say, hey, what is the essence of a company? And it kind of is like first principles, like what is the essence of investing? What is the essence of a company? And it comes down to the product. And what is the essence of a great product? It's something that's just far superior than any other product in this category. And if it's riding the coattails of innovation, of technology and change, and you're doing it at a super fast pace, like you're looking at a potential this game changer, And I think like in that sense, I think Wall Street in the typical finance world, like they're handicapped by their own type of values and culture and traditional ways. That gives an opportunity for retail investors who think outside the box, to kind of depart from that cultural norm to spot opportunities, And so I was just like shocked, for how long Tesla was at $30 or $6 pre-split, It stayed around $6 for the longest time. And anyone who wanted to buy Tesla for, all of 2012 and going into like, 4 months into 2013, they could buy Tesla at $5. Pre-split.
But to play devil's advocate, you were buying it at $3 billion for a company with like $300 million in revenue. It was an auto company, so it was like, okay, every auto company trades at 0.5 sales. You're implying a 20x bump in Tesla sales,
exactly,
price sales ratio. Even if they sell the Model 3 perfectly, it's already priced. I love putting myself back. So like, it's so funny what that argument was. And listening to you say, it's like I could boil down all of that, the failure of that culture, to hubris. The fact that they think they could put Elon Musk in a spreadsheet, and like some kid out of NYU who's never run a company thinks they can understand the value of a company like Tesla. It's like, when you take a step back and think about that's what's happening, it's like, dude, like you've never started a blog. Like, how are you, you know what I mean? You've never sold a product. How are you going to know what a car, like the complexities? So I think that hubris to think people can understand these businesses that are so like, I've spent like almost a decade studying Tesla, and there's only almost no other companies that I really even study. It's not even close. It's only one company. And I feel like I'm really an expert, but even that, I'm like still cautious about what I know about Tesla. And I spend every waking moment thinking about this company, and I still don't know enough to be 100% perfect. So the fact that people, this whole culture of like, diversify, own 20 or 30 stocks, in my head, I'm thinking like, no, like, like only 5% of people can do good enough homework on one stock to make money. And that's the
Hmm.
reality, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I totally get you. Yeah, I think, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the case study of Tesla, in from like 2012 or so, probably to 2020, um, with this, gigantic just run up, in valuation, and like I think Tesla will be another decade winner for in the next 10 years. I mean, if you look at Tesla, like going from a half a million cars to potentially 20 million cars in 2030, like this is just like it's another crazy jump, like going from in 2012 from like just barely producing Model S's to going to 500,000 as a goal was a huge jump. But I think we got a whole another second decade of growth, not just with cars but with energy, autonomous driving, all sorts of stuff. um, but it strikes me as kind of like one of these case studies, like maybe we look back like 30, 40 years from now, and it's like, how in the world did people not just miss Tesla, but spend billions and billions of dollars, like convinced that this was a fraud, that Elon was a fraud, that Tesla was going bankrupt, that their products sucked, there was no demand. Literally for, 2012, actually before that, 2010 to all the way probably until last year, the FUD was like just at a shrilling pitch that whole time.
It
And
was.
yeah, and yet Tesla is the big winner of the decade. Just pumping out cars, innovating, just heads down, building their product. And it's like it's so fascinating to me that it's such a dichotomy. You have one of
Hmm.
the greatest companies in our lifetime. In destined to probably become probably the most valuable company in the world, probably, and you see it right before your eyes happening, and yet you have like this huge group of people just completely convinced that it's the opposite, that it's a doomed company. What's your take? How do you explain all this?
I don't know. I think about the quote of like, what do you believe that no one else believes? And that's really how you capture alpha. And I wrote this tweet once and I was so happy with myself. It was like in 2018. It was like,
Mm,
Dear Tesla Q, your
mm-hmm,
skepticism is my alpha. And so I
mm-hmm,
really think that like, I could rant on about Tesla and nobody gets it and nobody believes in me, but that would be like the deep down reason why I was hyped, because I was like, okay, well, when every one of you are convinced, you're my smartest friend who's so
mm-hmm,
well educated and you don't even get Tesla. We are so
mm-hmm.
early. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
so on the flip side, I see the barometer of like opportunity in all that
yeah.
misjudgment. But I don't know. I think the Wall Street complex, I really just think it was hubris, like too
Mm-hmm.
confident for too long and just, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm curious, how did you get through the valley of the shadow of death, 2000, late 2018, early 2019? The company is struggling. Elon has his, struggling moments. You have, SEC coming down on Tesla. You have these like kind of, tweets going out. Um, you have, problems with production, etc. The mood around the company is like, pretty gloom. Like, what's when you look back, like kind of what took you through that time?
Yeah. Honestly, Elon Musk and Tesla and like my friends in the Tesla community, because
Mm,
I feel like I lost friends in that time. Like people would
mm-hmm,
text me out of the blue, be like, "Your guy Elon is crazy. What are you doing? You're going to ruin your career." You
mm-hmm,
know, and even people who were just my friends who had nothing to do with Tesla would text me like, "Elon's this. He's going to go to jail because of the fraud." Da da da. Even people that were lawyers that I knew would tell me it was a fraud. He was going, and then I'm like reading the courts. I'm like, no, to be a fraud, you have to be convicted of fraud. He hasn't been. Like, I don't know.
mm-hmm,
It's just so. And I was like running my own company, which is entirely bet on Tesla at the time, 25 years old, like, basically having no money. Like, I don't know,
mm-hmm,
I'm not that good of an investor yet because I haven't made any money. Like, so it was like probably one of the most difficult times in my life to just have this
mm-hmm,
conviction. I think it kept coming back to like, what is the future you believe in? Like when you like screw what's happening on your computer, drive down the street and look at how many cars are electric and it's none of them. And what's the future going to look like? It's all of them. Look at all the energy hitting every house that we're not collecting. Like it was just kind of the opportunity, and then the product and the customers, and like nothing else matters except if you're making customers happy and the product. And so that's where I feel like is everyone on Wall Street. I feel like nobody had driven the car. Nobody cared. It was Wall Street. They're getting chauffeured around. They've never even bought in a car. Jim Chanos, some billionaire, he has no idea what it's like to buy a car, and he's trying to say he's an expert at it. They were so out of touch with actually these tech nerds who would buy it and would literally be obsessed. When I see a cult, I am like, I'm hooked, because a cult, like you want, if you release a product and it's like meh and nobody cares, it sucks. You want love, hate. You want to drive that passion, that strong emotion. The Cybertruck. It's one of the most successful products of all time, and one of the most hated, ugly products of all time. And that's just how it kind of goes. And so, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but.
No, I hear you. I'm curious. Let's take a detour. Unless you got your thought.
No.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit brain dead.
Okay, no worries.
Editing for like 10 hours today.
Yeah, got it. What got you to start your initial podcast YouTube channel? Like, what was the turning point, that momentous, like that moment you said, I've got to do this?
Yep. Oh, this is great. So we're getting exactly back to the story I left off. So I'm at NYU. I get super turned off to all these people. And I remember I had a meeting with one of my professors, and it really resonated with what you were saying of like, and I was like, am I crazy? And I had an offer from sort of someone I met blogging through Seeking Alpha, and I was talking about small cap NASDAQ companies. They were super impressed. It was a private investor. And he was like, I want to pay you to do research for my portfolio and let you manage $500,000 for me. And, and like that could be your job instead of working for a firm and like having this autonomy and doing this thing and like really going on my own path and kind of being a startup, like money manager in my own way, or research analyst. And I went to ask one of my professors, and I was like, is this crazy? Like nobody in my class is doing this. Like everyone's trying to work at Goldman. Everyone's like clawing for this internship. Nobody's just doing what they want to do because they think the future's obviously headed this way. And he was like, the amount of people who just like checked all those boxes and do that, and then they're 65 in Connecticut with like this huge house and 3 Ferraris, and then they just wake up one day and they're like, I hate my life. I didn't do anything I was proud of. I just wasted it. And it's like one of the saddest things ever, he said. And like, that's what a lot of his friends ended up like. And I was like, it just had this moment of fear. From there was like, there's no looking back. I was like, and then I also just thought if you're going to be the outlier, like, okay, Malcolm Gladwell outliers. If I'm going to be like, if I'm going to change the world and be a big time in finance, like, do I need to follow the path everyone's following, or should I go my own way? And I feel like the outcome is the result of your choices. And if my choice is different than everyone else's choices, then my outcome is going to be different. And maybe I want a different outcome because I want to be an outlier. And so there was like kind of this convergence of moments. And so I went to work for this private investor doing investing. And then I was cornered into small cap NASDAQ. And my passion was Tesla. Personal portfolio was all in Tesla and Bitcoin. I was obsessed. I've been blogging about Bitcoin for NYU's newspaper. And my mentor was just like, he didn't get it. And he was like, so we kind of had to go our separate ways because and I got hired by this food startup, which was really cool, like Uber for kind of like Uber, but connecting chefs and local farmers with a truck network. So I was the farm partnerships manager, literally driving out to farms in New Jersey, being like, yo, like you trying to sell your food to chefs in Manhattan for twice what you're paying per bushel. And like our truck will pick, I love that job. So I worked for 6 months, and an investor in that company was Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh,
and
cool.
They wouldn't let me meet that Gary Vaynerchuk, even though I was like doing all of our investor pitches. The CEO like wouldn't let me in any of the meetings, which always pissed me off. So I never got to meet Gary V. But it's even better the way it all worked out because I started watching his videos. And Gary V, do you know Gary V?
Yeah, no, I totally know him. Yeah.
Okay,
I've watched a ton of his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and so people say he's corny, and I honestly don't watch him anymore because I got my lessons from Gary Vee. And I was like, yo, I've been nerding out about finance for so long. Everyone asks me, how do I learn about stocks in high school and whatever? I'm always the stock guy,
Yeah.
And I never knew what to say. And then I was like, what would be the most valuable asset to contribute to the investing community? Would be, let's say Warren Buffett kept a diary of every one of his investments and made it public. That would be the greatest asset ever for the investing community. And I feel like documenting my journey of trying to build my own snowball is an incredible opportunity. And it's easy and simple to say, but like if I'm committed to that and I know I love investing, I've been doing it for a decade. I put in my 10,000 hours, frankly, when I started Hyperchange. Like I had this confidence of like, you know what, I can do this. And so I wanted to bet on myself and kind of do it, and just saw this opportunity of like, you can be a creator and follow your passion. And I think the next greatest investors will not manage money. They will give out their ideas for free and only manage their own money. And they won't have a boss of clients. And I really bet on that business model. And I think having 1 million subscribers is way better than having $1 million under management. And so I decided that, and I said, I'm not going to try and be this hedge fund guy and raise my own money. Actually, I'm just going to start blogging online for free. Like Gary Vee style, and putting it out and just putting out good karma into the universe and literally selling all my Bitcoin at 17 grand. I made like 20x of my Bitcoin, cashed out, had a year worth of rent, and just said, like I'm going to go all in. And so I left the
Mm-hmm.
startup job. This is like early 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of had this year. And yeah, so I don't want to rant too long,
No, no,
but
no.
that was kind of the
Yeah,
genesis of it. And it was, yeah.
yeah. No, I watched your first a few months ago. I watched your first YouTube video ever. It was like episode 1 or something. And no, it was like you had like a vision. Back then you knew what you wanted to do. You knew the world is changing fast. You knew there's investment opportunities, and
Yeah.
you wanted to document, your journey, with that.
And I had a huge chip on my shoulder because
Hmm.
and Hyperchange was my investing philosophy that I used to get a C in all my economic classes because I said, no, the P ratio of Amazon of 50 is justified because they are growing faster
Hmm.
than ever. People are more connected than ever. Growth rates and the way companies are going to capture value is going to accrue faster. Interest rates are at all-time lows. This is breaking the equation of the
Hmm.
15 PE ratio. Nobody got that. And so I literally articulated and wrote this paper and had this whole theory called Hyperchange, which was that companies' growth rates would be faster. The entire PEG ratio is out of whack. You had to rework the PEG ratio to factor in these hyper
Hmm.
growth rates. And so,
Yeah.
it was really this theory of like, we're at a different moment in the markets. Like,
Yeah. I'm curious, like, how do you run your YouTube channel? Like, do you have a certain number of videos you want to put out every month or week? How do you like brainstorm topics? And like, how long does like a video take?
totally. So, like, I would say my main job is me investing and studying companies, and then the YouTube channel is to document that journey, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's what dictates the content, like this last week I have like 3 videos in the queue. Sometimes Tesla news comes out, I film a video, put it out within
Hmm.
an hour because it's super hot and I want like people to have my take. Other times I'll travel and I'm spending 4 hours with a company to do due diligence because I want to make an angel investment and I'm going to make a really good documentary about that, and it's going to take me 15 hours to do it, and I know only 5,000 people are going to watch it versus 100,000 for my Tesla videos, but I don't
Hmm.
care because I'm documenting my investing journey. And when you watch my shit in 10 years, you're like, damn, Gali was on one about that.
Hmm.
Like,
Uh-huh.
so it's just like following my creative process, not
Got it.
creating, documenting the journey, not
Hmm.
forcing creation, if that makes sense.
Got it. Got it. Are you, in terms of documenting your journey, like, let's say, like, how do you feel about sharing the number of shares you have or your assets specifically? Like, have you thought about the pros and cons of doing that or not?
No, this is
Okay.
probably like an off the record convo I should have with you, honestly. Because I should probably get advice on it. But no, like I would say how many shares I have,
Yeah,
and now
yeah, I've noticed that.
but now I've kind of stopped. And I kind of
Hmm.
like to make it like hard to figure out because
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I don't like, I never talk about my investing performance. I never keep track of
yeah.
my own investing performance. Like, I just think that's all bad to focus on the money side of it. Just like,
Uh-huh.
I want to do it for the company. So, I don't want people to focus on that. So I try and not mention it, but I do put out videos with the percentages of what I
Hmm.
hold because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
documenting the journey. So that's like my journal entry of just like, all
yeah,
right, today's the day. This is what I own today. Here's why. Like, this is a good
yeah.
exercise.
How do you deal with like I mean, do you ever think that if you are getting into a new company, you see potential and you start investing in it, do you fear that some people will just invest purely because they watched like, one video and they're not going to do any research on their own? And like, do you feel like you might be encouraging people just to be kind of lazy and just kind of follow whatever you're doing?
I think I don't encourage people to be lazy because I say they need to do their own homework and make
Hmm.
their own decisions and be grown-ups. And I'm really adamant about that. And so I
Hmm.
really try and push that. And like, that's why I say in all my videos, there's a disclaimer. It says, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Like, you're literally just going to lose at life in investing if your strategy is to copy someone. You just don't get it. And so I'm not
Hmm.
even worried about catering. Like, it's just
Hmm.
so far from what I care out. Like, I have an amazing audience that does amazing comments and like emails me, my Patreons. Like, I'm just so grateful for that community and dialogue. And
Hmm.
that's one thing that's really giving me optimism about the world and using the internet and all these tools is like the community I've found with Hyperchange and the way they
Hmm.
help me grow and learn and the way they get me. And they're like, I get so many emails like, Gali, I know you don't do financial advice and I'm not going to like, I'm not going to sue you, but this is why I'm like really curious, like, so
Uh-huh.
people even
Uh-huh.
really get it. So, yeah, so I try and stay. I've never given financial advisor, but I've really just been surprised about the kind of there's people in
Yeah.
it for the wrong reasons, but a lot of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are in it for the right reasons.
What do you tell people when they're like, Tesla stock is at like $500, like post split. So it's like, 450 billion or almost $500 billion hypothetically. And then people are like, oh, is it too late to get into Tesla? Should I buy Tesla right now? Like, what's your
Yep.
typical thinking or, response to that?
Oh, my response is perfect. Is you should be a grown up and make your own financial decisions.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not your I don't know. And I just think that wake up call is what people need to hear, as kind of
Hmm.
unhelpful as it is. Just
Yeah,
them
yeah,
taking a step back of like, oh, wait, like I should actually think about what I do with my money, not just randomly put my life savings into something that Gali said that he doesn't care about. Like, like
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I just think there's needs to be an entirely rework of the culture of like people don't even get what money is.
yeah,
Like what
yeah,
is money? The ability to store value over time. So what do you want to do with all the money that you've made in your life? Do you want to deploy it in fiat cash, or do you want to play it in equity of a high growth technology company, or do you want to employ it in a digital currency with a finite amount of
hmm,
supply? Like these are very complex questions
yeah,
that you need to think through on your own, not just get a stock pick from someone else. So
yeah,
I'm really trying to have a whole I really want to reinvent this conversation,
yeah.
honestly.
I mean, do you notice like on YouTube, but also other places, a growing culture of like just kind of picking stock picking, like and people just spreading out just like 10, 20, whatever you like, person pops up a video or article says, hey, this stock is the next big stock. And then if you like the person, if you trust the person, if it's like a person with lots of following, then you're like, oh my gosh, I'll just do it. And then they go to the next stock and next stock. So they end up with like 15, 20, 30 stocks, but they know basically very little about these stocks. All they know is like that each of these stocks have been pumped by someone, influential. Um,
Yep.
and so it's just like it's the thought process behind buying stocks. It's just like, especially with like Robinhood, it's so easy to buy stock now. You don't need any special entrance fee or whatever into it. And so I don't know. Have you noticed that type of like trend at all, or is it just me? I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
I think it's good in that it's like this is new investors getting their feet wet in the market, and
Hmm.
they have a million roadblocks to stumble on and lose their money like 10 times in a row before they,
Hmm.
and this is just all a part of that. So I see this as if you're interested in the market, like that's what got me pumped and learning about investing is when I was
Hmm.
14, I was like, okay, I have like $800 in life savings. I'm just going to like convince my dad to like help me set up an E-Trade account and put the money in.
Hmm.
And then like if I lose it, whatever, but like I learn. And so I just think people learning and just putting real money to work and paying attention is all good and helping the education. But I think it's the YouTube clickbait internet culture we live in is, yeah,
Hmm.
people are going to try and do that. And I think, I always veer super non-clickbait to my videos. I think you do
Hmm.
that too. Like
Hmm.
we're kind of trying to do it the right way of like, and the creator who's pumping some stock to try and get his followers to buy it and sell it and not in for the right reasons. And the person buying that, like they're just both losing.
Uh-huh.
And so instead of like trying to focus my time on like the bad things I see, I just like I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing and building things the right way and telling people how to do things the right way.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm involved in like Public, for instance,
Hmm.
because I think they're like a Robinhood competitor, but like just way different in their ethos of like no margin, not short-term trading. You can add it to like a long-term bucket. It's like before you post a comment on their thing, it's like shows you like, hey, be supportive. Like everyone's trying to learn. Like we're in this for a positive community. Like so. I think this bubbling up of emotion and frenzy and SPAC mania, it's a little bit worrisome and
Yeah. Yeah.
bubble-like, but it's also people are going to get their feet wet and into the game, and that's good 10 years from now.
Yeah. I hear you. Um, Yeah, I'm curious. Like, yeah, that's actually a good perspective. So for me, I also kind of feel like, you know, I want to, when I want to share not necessarily because like I want to be right or I want to influence people on their decisions. I want to share kind of my thought process and I want to help people build like the skills and the ability to think clearly, to objectively analyze and understand a company, where things are going in the future, where what is an opportunity, what is like a true opportunity, and understanding risk and reward. And so for me, it's like I think of my channel as like a thinking channel. It's like I want to help people to think better, and I think that's the most valuable skill you have is I think people overestimate the end result, the results of like whatever percent your stock portfolio goes up. For me, it's like that's just a consequence, of something else that's going on inside your mind, but also the habits that you create. Like, what are you doing with your time? How are you researching? How are you finding, new opportunities and stuff? And so, like I find myself like focusing on that stuff, but I find myself kind of like feeling a bit like alone, like going against the culture, of kind of at times YouTube or investing at large. And it feels like a lot of people or a lot of the culture is just, hey, tell me what to buy, and I'll buy it, rather than kind of like the hard work of really getting down into like understanding like a company and their pros and cons. And I'm doing a series on like on Lemonade Insurance, and
Oh,
like I'm just did my second video. I'll do like probably 4 or 5 more videos, but in the videos, I'm just like kind of going through my thought process, analyzing pros and cons, but I'm not really giving a buy or not buy recommendation per se.
Hmm.
And it just feels like a strange thing to do. It seems like a YouTube channel, a YouTube video. You need to like go, "Hey, this is a great buy, a great stock," and show some numbers, but it feels like I don't know. It just feels like it's a um, different style, different approach. I don't know, but I resonate with a lot of stuff you're saying though too. With people taking responsibility with their own decisions and learning as the kind of the key.
Yeah. And I think you need to watch less YouTube, Dave. Like,
I
I
know,
think,
yeah,
and focus
seriously,
on
yeah,
what you're
yeah,
doing. Like, I almost never watch YouTube unless it's like something I really want to see, because I just, you can get lost in the sauce of what are other creators doing? Why do they have more subscribers? What's happening there? Like,
yeah,
but you're a creator and you have to like, people follow you because you have the vision and you're leading. So the second you start watching and doing that, you're following. And
yeah.
so
No,
like, I don't even pay
seriously,
attention. Like, yeah, I know it's all
yeah,
bullshit. People are always pumping penny stocks. There's always Jordan Belfort in
exactly,
the market. Like, yeah, like that's the part of the market I stay away from. I'm
yeah,
focused on building the corner of my market that I want to. And
exactly.
like, yeah, and the thing is like your quality of subscribers, like I'm more bullish on your channel than I am on all
Hmm.
these other investing channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Cause I'm like,
Hmm.
Dave gets it. He's doing this the right way. He makes smart investments. He's in it for the right reasons. Like you're really sharing your thought process, like, methodically, kind of
Hmm.
very similar to what I'm doing, like documenting
Yeah,
your own
yeah,
investing journey. Like, okay, this lemonade as
yeah,
one's out.
exactly.
Let's check it out and see what's up. And
Yeah,
in the long run, the quality of your subscribers, and although there's no way to quantify and nobody's appreciating the value that you built in your community beyond just the number,
hmm,
it's there, and you're
yeah,
gonna monetize it and just get the value from it in some way. And so that's just
yeah,
what Gary Vee really taught me, honestly, is like
yeah,
do it for the
yeah,
right reasons and think super long term. And like, I don't know, just every time I've thought that philosophy, it's worked out so well long
yeah,
term that I really
yeah,
have like a lot of faith.
yeah. It was interesting. A few days ago, I was like trying to get some ideas on video. Um, and I was kind of browsing, YouTube and watching a few videos. And then after like 30 minutes, I just got like paralyzed, It's just like, I just don't know what to do. And it's like, it's just something about it. Like, it's just like over floods my mind, with like so much stuff. And I had to turn it off. And I'm like, it's like, I think my next topic, my idea is going to come like not from here, but just like in silence, as I just like
Yeah,
think about or meditate about something that no one else is thinking about, some other angle. So I just like
yeah,
shut it off and I just like close my eyes for like 15, 20 minutes and it came, it's like, this is it,
uh,
and I'm like, so fascinating. You could follow and mimic and try to just copy everything else, but that's just what it is. It's just imitation, it's just copying. But there's something about it now I agree, when you do shut it off and you just look inside, look inside to your own values, your own insights, perspectives, stories, something comes out that's just out of the box. Um, yeah, but no,
yeah.
I appreciate definitely your input and advice.
And it's like, who do you make content for? Like at the end of the day, it's my investing diary. I'm making content for myself 30 years from now.
Hmm.
That's the
Yeah,
only person I care about whose opinion on that video is like, am I going to look back on this video in 20 years and be like, I put my all into it. I'm so proud. I focused on that thing that I was nerding out about that I knew wasn't going to get views. Yes. Like, you know what I mean? Like that.
yeah,
And so I just love putting myself in that lens of like, that's how I score it is like, am I proud
yeah,
because I put my creative all into this and like told the story I wanted to tell it in the most authentic way and just was
yeah,
most myself. And in the
yeah.
long run, that's always provides me the most satisfaction with like my creative output.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I want to jump to Bitcoin because I know you we're going all over the place, but I know you've talked about
Love
and
it.
you've been bullish on Bitcoin. Um, Someone actually suggested that I talk to you about Bitcoin because I'm like, hey, who do I talk
Oh, no.
with? Yeah, who do I talk with about Bitcoin? Because I've got kind of mixed opinions about the whole thing of Bitcoin. On one side, I'm like, hey, I understand the bull case. I actually resonate with a lot of the values of the whole Bitcoin, community. I'm really into, the whole concept of kind of freedom and independence and also putting some type of check or, boundaries with government, etc. And I understand the whole crypto, you know, um, technology, the breakthroughs. I understand that. But on the flip side, I can't get over, or it's difficult for me to get over this hurdle where in this world we've got like a authoritarian hierarchy where government takes kind of the top place, and this is like unchanged in history typically. And for the government to exist, like they need income, they need revenue. And if anything comes in that is existential threat to them achieving more revenue, then the government, in my opinion, will clamp down. Like it's a enemy, it's a war. And
Totally.
when I look at Bitcoin and when I hear the enthusiasm and the bull case of Bitcoin, it just puts it in such stark contrast with the whole just government idea of controlling money, of taxing money, of that being its existential type of source of revenue. And, without that, the government can't exist. And so I just feel like government will likely crack down, will make their own cryptos. Like every major country in the world, China, US, Europe, etc., will have their own form of cryptocurrency, and that will be the main form. And any other form of cryptocurrency will have to be highly regulated, where it kind of loses its kind of privacy and its benefit anyway. So, and it's kind of regulated as this kind of like, I don't know, not as maybe valuable as the potential people claim to be. So what's your take? Like, what am I missing in this bigger picture?
So if Bitcoin becomes the status quo, the US and the US dollar will use its, like the hegemony of the US dollar will lose its kind of soft power to influence all these world events. But it will not lose its power to tax its citizens and bookkeep. And frankly, I think the entire way Bitcoin works of just being on this blockchain is if you ran everything on Bitcoin, you could way more systematically tax things, way more streamline it, have way less tax evasion because it would be all on the blockchain. Like, I think the least trackable thing you can do is paper money by far. That's like the least, and that's like what our government's currently doing to try and pay taxes and figure everything out. That's why half the businesses on the street tell me I can't use my credit card with this. They're cash only because they're all evading taxes. I mean, this is a massively pervasive problem. The hurdle is not that high. And so I think Bitcoin to me is inherently software, inherently everything is tracked on the blockchain. So if you are actually a government and adopted it and we're like, all currencies on Bitcoin, we can literally, like there's a company called Chainalysis that one of my friends Alex works for, or I don't know if he still does, but it was so fascinating when he was telling me about it, of like their entire business is a SaaS product, like the FBI, CIA, and US government and all these governments to track the blockchain data and literally tell you who's owned what wallet, where they're moving money. It's so much more trackable than the fiat system. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you have more to.
Yeah. So, okay, on the whole cash thing, I mean, we're seeing like a huge decline in physical cash. And if you look at all the trends, probably in 10, 15, max 20 years, pretty much physical cash will be, obsolete or very fringe. And so across the world, we're seeing that decline. So the government is likely to step in and say, okay, they like that because they can tax more, and they can catch, people evading. But I don't get why, for example, with Bitcoin, if Bitcoin was completely transparent, where the government could find every single person or every single amount at any time, etc., then what's the purpose of Bitcoin?
Well, you can find what every wallet has, where every Bitcoin's moved to every wallet, but you don't know who owns all those wallets.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the government needs to know that to tax. So if the government, I don't understand how they're going to how Bitcoin is going to help the government compared to their own cryptocurrency and banning Bitcoin altogether.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is kind of we're getting a little bit into the weeds of like, I think the government could, if they implemented Bitcoin, could they like start to track it? And they're like, okay, you're going to sign up to pay taxes. Here's your code, sign up with, here's your wallet. And we'll see all the transactions that flow to this wallet. And then I think the amount of data and insight you would get relative to the current fiat system is night and day. Like you just said, it would take 10 to 15 years to mitigate cash out of the system. Bitcoin's already way better than that today for the whole system. Yeah. So to me, it's like the hurdle to set is low. Because it's like, yeah, there needs, even in the current fiat system, there's some voluntary thing of like, this is my bank account, I'm me.
Yeah.
Here's the tax, here's the money. I literally have to go to the government and tell them how much money I made every day. And, you can put in whatever you want on the form. Look what our president did. And so like, but like, yeah, so I don't know. I think Bitcoin inherently is very trackable, but I think the real question of why government might not want it is because you look at like how much of the world powers how much of things are transacted US dollars because of,
Hmm.
oil has to trade in the US dollar. How much of foreign currency reserves is the US dollar? How much does that mean that we can print more dollars to solve all our problems? There's a lot of value tied up for the government in this entire fiat system and the way they can essentially print more value and dilute all of their stakeholders at their own expense to just, raise capital. And so I think there's this new ideological trend of like, as a human, regardless of what governments will let you or not, you're like, okay, well, do I want to store money in this weird, constantly dilution system? Or is there a new, like, basically just mathematical formula to lock in my value?
Yeah.
And we can just let human psychology take hold, which is really what money is anyway. And so, and that's the way I look at it, is kind of like this new category of like, so you're like I love my analogy of like, we're monkeys on this rock of Earth, and like, we work our butts off to like get value, right? And it's like, we can put it in this paper, but now there's this new thing of like, we can put it on this thing that lives on the internet that nobody can shut down, that we can all see the code of. Like, to me, I take a step back and I'm like, this just seems like such a more efficient, more thing that I would trust, more safer alternative to store my value as a hardworking monkey. This random fiat system, I don't know. I'm curious what you think of that analogy. Like the super high level kind of.
Yeah. Like, so I totally get, for example, the whole argument that, Bitcoiners make about fiat money is in trouble. We've got all this like rising debt. We've got like a crisis of confidence, with all this money printing coming. And so thus, cash is like, definitely a questionable asset at best. And I understand that kind of whole fiat system at risk kind of narrative. Yeah. But the thing is like, when I look at it from a first principle kind of like point of view, with cryptos and especially like with Bitcoin, there's an immense amount of computing power, which equals cost to do transactions. It takes so much money just to, in terms of computing power to process transactions. So what we have is we have a database, a ledger that, can record transactions, but it's extremely like expensive. And the reason why it's expensive is because to preserve the whole, kind of no one owns the database, no one party owns a database kind of mentality. So because of that, it's like a crazy expensive financial system to do any type of transaction. And to me, on a first principle point of view, for a person who doesn't believe in government and doesn't want government, that makes sense. But for a person who says, hey, government is going to be around here, they're going to be the major players, it just makes sense that, hey, the governments like are going to crack down on this. This is not going to happen like what people think it's going to happen. The governments are all going to have their own cryptos. They're all going to enforce complete transparency on all the rest of the cryptos, which is going to lose its value proposition now. And I don't know. Have you heard? There was a video or an interview by Elon Musk maybe 2 years ago, and he was asked about Bitcoin, and he was saying,
"Oh yeah,
did you see that
Bitcoin in person?"
Oh really? Yeah.
Third Row podcast.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Really?
I think there's a whole clip on it on my YouTube
Okay. Well, let me know what he said on that one, because in this one interview he was saying like he doesn't think Bitcoin is going to be the database of the future, basically.
No, he's downplaying. I think he's downplaying because he doesn't want to piss more people off. So, okay, I want to jump in on a couple of things, because my theory is emissions per dollar moved on the network is dropping dramatically off of a cliff for many reasons. A, the grid's getting more sustainable, but mainly layer 2 transactions will occur, which allow you to move way more money way faster and then settle big blocks on the blockchain. That's like what Square and Jack Dorsey are working on. So that'll massively decrease emissions. The other thing is, go to any small town. Every neighborhood in Seattle has like 4 small banks. The other day, I have a bank thing. I had to drive to the bank to go do the thing, to talk to the person in person, to figure out my money, instead of doing it from behind home on the computer. So yes, Bitcoin is very intensive from a resource perspective, but I think those resources per dollar move are going to go down and in a dramatic way be like totally sustainable. And frankly, I think the current financial system has so many externalities, negative externalities and emissions that you're just not thinking of, that it's not like the current financial system has 0 emissions and Bitcoin has a ton. The current financial system has a ton of emissions. We're just not thinking and factoring them all in. But look at the footprint of every Bank of America building. Look at how they have to keep the AC on, hire 4 employees to drive an ICE car to work just to sit there and do something you could have done on the computer in 2 seconds. Bitcoin, So that's where, to me, it's like, I just transferred money to the startup. I wrote them a wire. It took me like a week to get there, and I had to pay some massive fee to do it. I was like, it would have been cheaper and faster to move this on the Bitcoin network. Bought a little more Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't actually, but yeah.
yeah, I totally get that, but I think like it's showing obviously the faults of the current financial system, but in my opinion, I'm not defending the financial system in any way currently, but
Uh,
it seems like the most efficient way to go is to go to a database. Like, for example, if Elon Musk would have continued with PayPal, he would have made PayPal their database and PayPal kind of the ultimate, like, kind of bank system in the whole US and maybe the world, where, you just, you skip the banks, you skip everything, and then every transaction is just a database entry in and out. There's no
yeah.
like
So
Byzantine general problem to solve and all these like massive amounts of computing power. It's simply right in the database, out the database. And this one company is able to do a massive database. I think the ultimate thing is probably going to be more on a government level, though, with a huge database like that.
yeah, but do you not think in the this trunk of all possibilities, there wouldn't be a
Mm-hmm.
lot of human betting on the decentralized authority? Like, I think that's always a sliver of the economic system, is this
Mm-hmm.
radical bet on the apocalypse and the decentralized authority. And maybe that's only 0.1% of the financial system, but that's
Mm-hmm.
enough for Bitcoin to still go way up from here. And so that's where I'm like fascinated by it, is that
Yeah.
kind of decentralized thing. But I store all my Bitcoin on Coinbase. That's a huge
Yeah.
contentious point for real
Yeah,
hardcore Bitcoin
exactly.
people, because it's a central authority. But I'm like, no, I like to trust Coinbase with my key, so I don't have to have some piece of paper where I scribbled on in a bank in some mountain in Switzerland that I have to find. Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
that's way
Mm-hmm.
less secure than me trusting like one of the biggest tech companies in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh, I don't know.
Like,
To me, it's so fascinating. I don't know, because
yeah. Yeah.
like I'm arguing for Bitcoin, but it's like, and I have a couple Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and I love the future, but am I totally sold? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do I think there's a 10 or 15% chance that the network combusts and dies
Uh-huh.
like at any moment? Totally.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, I wish, I hope, and I like am totally for the whole idea of supporting decentralization and a lot of the values that Bitcoin aspires for. It's just that, like, for example, a lot of times, the Bitcoiners will say, hey, store of value, like, what's a better store of value than Bitcoin, especially with cash, being in doubt in the future, and with all these governments printing money and the whole financial system at risk, hey, at least have, the typical argument is at least have 1% in Bitcoin, right? To hedge
which is
some
kind of what I
risk.
was saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
like this
But
apocalypse insurance. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm like, I don't really get that 1% argument either. Because when I think about it, I'm like, you can make that 1% argument like for a lot of different things. I mean, like, you could say, hey, put 1% of your money into a RV so you can have it in case of an apocalypse, Put 1% into like some type of land in the rural state where you can farm in case all the cities
But
get
I'm like,
blown
bro,
up,
you're
right?
actually saying a bunch of good ideas. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, those are all things I'd be doing. I'm 50% of my portfolio is these random 1%. So if I have $1 billion
Uh,
guaranteed,
sure.
Bitcoin, my RV, my ranch, like, right? That's how you're right.
Am I laying out your your
No,
plan?
and I
Yeah.
think I love the point of like,
Uh,
actually, to me, risk management is such a big concept in this
yeah.
traditional finance where it's broken. And to me,
Hmm.
it's like, oh, everyone's going buying Exxon, these dividend stocks that are low risk. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's bullshit. To me, low
Hmm.
risk is owning a bunch of Tesla stock and then a bunch of guns and tuna. That's low risk.
Hmm.
I feel like people don't put themselves outside of this. Like, we're all about calculating the risk of our portfolio and financial assets, but not like our life.
Yeah.
It's kind
No,
of an exaggeration, but you get the point. And that's
no,
why I
no,
love this
totally.
idea
Yeah.
of like, yeah, I actually think you should donate a piece of your portfolio to like a stash of food, an RV, and a little bit of Bitcoin and a little bit of physical gold if you have the means to do that.
Sure. To me, I actually I love that point because I actually feel the same way too in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. Where I'm like, people under minimize risk. Just because, for example, there's a small chance of an apocalypse slash, the world going crazy, right? Like, because it's a small chance, people discount it completely usually. Like, a lot of times most people have a hard time grasping like two polarizing opposite outcomes in one hand. Like, they can't. I think something about our human brains is like difficult to completely like come to grips with that or just be at peace with that. So people tend to just discount and say, hey, the world's going to be okay, everything's going to be rosy. And so the apocalypse type of the world going crazy, people discount it. But I'm actually a believer that if you look at risk more objectively, that stuff is actually something you have to think about. And it's like, it's like a 1%, 2%, 3%, 4, even 5% chance. Actually, that's quite high, considering the magnitude of impact. We have to think about, like, even with climate change, like we can imagine and think everything's going to be okay, and we've got this covered, we're going to make changes, but you never know. We might have already passed a certain point, where things can get really messy very fast. And so I totally understand that. But for me with Bitcoin, I'm like, because Bitcoin has such, in my opinion, a decent percent chance of failing. And I'm not saying that it has a 50 or 70% chance of failing. I don't know what that chance is. Let's say maybe it's a 10 to 30% chance, or even 10 to 40% chance, in my opinion, of failing. Like, why would I want to put, like, as a hedge of like kind of the world, ending, whatever, put 1% to there where I could put 1% into something where I know will still be around, like something
that 10 to 15% of chance of failure is like if the world goes as normal, that's where Bitcoin fails. Is if the fiat system goes smoothly. I don't know. That's
I see. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. It's like, is it really the apocalypse insurance if it itself is risky, kind of?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you can't count on it 100%, like for example, your ranch out in the
yeah. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No. Yeah.
No, I mean, I just think it's really hard to kill. Like like 10 to 15% that it blows up is to me like the 10 to 15% understanding that I have that every software project that I don't code myself will blow up because I'm not a software engineer and I just bake that level of risk into my system.
Yeah.
Like, another interesting analogy, even with Tesla, is I think so many people take for granted they drive like crazy. Like me getting my Tesla, I've noticed how many crazy drivers there are on the freeway. Like in New York, I was walking, I didn't notice.
Yeah.
People on the highway are insane. They're doing their makeup. They're just passing me like 90 miles an hour because they're pissed. And I'm like, Jesus, we need like autopilot's so much safer than that person, And like that's an example of where I drive on chill mode. I drive like a grandma because I've been in a motorcycle crash and I know that my life could end in 0.1 seconds.
Yeah.
And so the amount of people who are going to diversify into 100 stocks, we're going to drive 90 miles an hour doing their makeup on the highway. I'm like, you're insane.
Yeah.
So I just think that's another interesting dichotomy of risk. And to me, it hits so hard at Tesla of like people will focus so hard on that one autopilot car that crashed and never focus on the dozens of lives that have been saved. And so.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Okay. One last thing with Bitcoin. This whole store of value. No, this whole store of value thing, right? I mean, I get it because it seems like as more and more people believe in it, it will be harder to kill. And I'm actually as skeptical as I am about Bitcoin. I have a growing respect for Bitcoin just because I call it like the cockroach that just doesn't die, it just is it's just staying around. And
I have so much respect for you, Dave, for not really believing in it, but being like genuinely curious and fascinated enough to keep with it, because that's what I think it is. That's to me about Bitcoin. It's like I don't think there's a right or wrong. Actually, the only way you can be wrong about it is if you don't care or don't think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But that's to me. But I'm like, this is such an experiment, and whether you could say cockroach or not, like this thing has existed for 10 years. It's trading billions of dollars a day. It's moving just as much money as PayPal. Like.
Exactly. Exactly.
And are you moving? Like this is it's working.
Exactly. So there's this, and I'm fascinated by this whole thing. I'm like, I'm reading all these books, all the major like Bitcoin books, and these like podcasts, all this stuff, and I'm listening and I'm trying to understand it. And the thing that about the store of value is I understand the whole like, potential store of value argument. But on the flip side, if people start losing faith in Bitcoin and you have the whales pulling out billions and billions of dollars, like I don't see what's going to catch Bitcoin, if confidence is lost, if there's some new technology, some better thing, or whether it's a government thing or something else, it's like, or some crazy regulation by China, US, and Europe all cracking down on Bitcoin at the same time, where no transparent or is no hidden transaction. Every wallet, everything has to be open. I mean, it just seems like at a certain point, like if money is pulled out, the whales lose confidence, then the whole store value argument crumbles. And I understand it's a minuscule risk.
That unraveling is happening in fiat right now into Bitcoin, which is why it's so funny. And I'm like, the US dollar, I think that's exactly what's happening in the US dollar is people are like, wait, I don't want to hold this shit. That's why I'd rather own Tesla at 4,000 PE. You
Sure.
know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
literally think
exactly.
exactly what you're saying is happening
Yeah.
right now to the fiat system, but it's not Bitcoin, it's US dollars. And
Yeah.
they're saying, why would I want to own this when I could, my trust in this algorithm is so
Yeah.
much higher?
But my thing is,
Yeah.
okay, the fiat system, yeah, you know, you lose confidence in that. But why? I mean, in my opinion, like equities, right? You can own the best companies in the world. That seems like a more sure thing to me. Of course, those companies can all, I guess, be blown up somehow. Or you can own real estate too. You know, like I'm like,
But
hey,
what is a company? A company is
mm,
like the right to the cash flows of that asset. Like you're
sure,
tied, your value of your investment is tied to the inherent usefulness of the technology that you're investing in, kind of to humans.
sure,
And so to me, Bitcoin's moving billions of dollars per day. We can call it a company or not, but
mm,
either way, like I'm getting rights to this system, which is to me providing enough value to humans to already be $100 or $200 billion company. That's why its network value's there. And
sure,
I can easily see that utility once they move tens of billions of dollars a day, moving to trillions of dollars. So even
yeah,
though like to me it's like yeah it's not a company but you can use these different statistics of like you know how much money is this moving per day versus PayPal, what's their equity value, how is that value going to those shareholders, you know, we can start to get like sort of a intrinsic value for it.
yeah. You know, I actually value it like that. Like, I was actually bullish on Bitcoin when Bitcoin was like around 500, because I'm like, if you look at the intrinsic value of it as a financial network itself, you know, and
Yep.
you're like, hey, you know, it's like what 10, 20 billion bucks or whatever. That's pretty cheap for a robust world financial network that can be a legit alternative to fiat, you know. um, as it grows higher in market cap valuations, like I think it's at 200 billion or so, then I start to have some question marks on like what is the inherent like intrinsic value of the financial network itself apart from the whole store of value, you know, type of, you know, side of the equation.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what gets me pumped. Like the end of the day, my core theory is this: is like the
Mm,
fiat system needs an inflation hedge. It's an amazingly
mm,
powerful, you know, sort of check in all the powers that be. And gold has a massive $7 trillion place in our financial system because it
mm,
is that inflation hedge, and it has been even in jewelry before the fiat system was around.
mm,
But I've had gold. I have my gold chain. I do Monet. You know, it's
mm,
like you buy real gold jewelry. Like it
mm,
nicks. I can't move it. I can't send it across the world. Like it, you know, I might lose it. Like Bitcoin is just a better thing like this. And yeah, it's not shiny, but Bitcoin's
mm.
just as shiny in terms of, you know, value in the zeitgeist, you know,
Yeah.
cultural shine. You know, Bitcoin, as I say I own Bitcoin, it's like the new saying I have a gold necklace. You know,
Mm,
people don't
mm.
see that cultural value, but it's there. And so to
Yeah.
me, I see that there's a sliver of this economy that is so important to me because it's a real check on these powers of we can't hyperinflate our currency because there's this just status quo, low moving micro inflation up slowly up to 20 million asset. And that is to me such a powerful check on the system. And our system is getting so radical that I to me see just you know 200 billion to me is just a drop in the bucket of if gold sucks at it and there's already 7 trill and I see things getting less stable and this is better than gold and the economy grows, we're at
Mm.
15 trill instantly, slowly compounding at maturity towards 20-25 trill is kind
Sure.
of the inherent fair value. So I still see a 30 to 50 like x upside, which even sounds crazy, but
Uh
yeah,
huh.
this is kind of like my back of the napkin thesis of
Yeah.
how I really think.
Yeah. I mean, I could see Bitcoin, you know, like it as a financial network itself. It's like it's hard for me to see the value like much higher than it is now. When you add kind of the store value and the confidence of big money putting their
Mm-hmm.
their assets into this, then I could say, okay, you know, it could go up quite a bit. I mean, like, I mean,
The
were you shocked?
institutionalization of Bitcoin.
Exactly, exactly. Like that's why I thought today's news of like Square buying $50 million worth of Bitcoin was huge, big news. Because I'm like, I mean, I think people underestimate what's going on here. It's like you have a, you know, a big,
Twitter and Square, Jack
exact,
Dorsey.
yeah, exactly. Like you've got, I mean, this isn't just a person who likes Bitcoin. This is a person who's enacted in their whole Square Cash App a whole infrastructure, you know, of to let millions of people get into Bitcoin at small amounts, and now he's backing up further by putting his, you know, the company's own money into Bitcoin, and so it's like this is huge. This is not some outskirt person
Dude, this
who's
is
kind of
huge.
a weirdo putting his money, personal money, into Bitcoin. This is saying a public traded company and a large one putting a significant amount of money. It's backing up this asset to a whole new level, you know? I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a big stuff.
Yeah, and I think that single-handedly is also like probably 30% of my bullishness on Bitcoin is that you have one of the most powerful tech people in the world who runs the largest payment seller platform and the largest payments app in the US, soon to be maybe in the world, Cash App,
Yeah.
loves Bitcoin and wants to put it on his app. To
Yeah.
me, that is what moves the needle. Is like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
debate. It's on the cusp. A lot of like smart people are fascinated by it. Big money's circling, and now we have one of the biggest tech companies in the world with 20 million people on their app, just growing
Exactly.
100% per year, just throwing Bitcoin at people. It's gonna happen. So to me, that is actually one of the most biggest underrated catalysts for Bitcoin. I almost bought more Bitcoin today. I'm so broke. So I'm trying to move into a new apartment. I got my Tesla. Like I'm just stretched to the brim with my assets. Like I have no
Yeah.
investable cash. And I was
Yeah.
scrambling today when I saw
Yeah.
that Square news to try and
Yeah.
figure out how to buy Bitcoin. I couldn't. But
Yeah.
that's how much my conviction in the underlying thesis of Bitcoin went up because
Yeah.
of that. Because this is the Bitcoin FOMO apocalypse.
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
bill versus 7 trill for gold. The second Square does it, Twitter does it, Tesla,
Yeah.
Apple, Amazon, I don't know, the U.S. government, the government of Switzerland's like, we are taking a
Yeah.
strategic 20 million position. Like,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
I think that psychology pendulum still has a long way to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
in the institutionalization, which brings hundreds of more billions of dollars in.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting points. I mean, with Jack Dorsey, it's fascinating because it almost seems like, and it's probably the case though, he would trade, if he could, Twitter and Square to own 100% of Bitcoin. Like he believes in Bitcoin so much that
And what is Jack Dorsey? He's a hacker. He's a
yeah,
coder, dude. If
sure.
you study his bio, this dude was coding stuff from like hacking into all these. Like, that's why I love Bitcoin, is because the people that are 10 times smarter than me about computer science view it as like God. And they're just putting all their money. And you know what I mean? So that's where I start to follow. It's not just some business exec who's pumped about it to make money. It's like, no, this is the smartest hacker in the world who built two $50 billion companies as a side hustle while he was really just scheming on his own things. And is pumped about it. Like, let's think about what the smartest generations of our time, smartest minds of our time, or of our generation or whatever, are thinking about this asset and are moving their extremely powerful companies to promote this asset. It's kind of fascinating to watch. It's like, I don't think the game's over. It's like a football game. It's like, the fourth quarter, there's the score, US dollar, Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's fascinating. Like, I look at the whole Bitcoin thing and I'm like, people who aren't interested in it, like, don't care about it, right? They're not following it. And then those who are in it are just really in it, right? They're just like completely in it. And I look at it and I'm just like, it's one of the most fascinating things going on, I think, in our times. What was I gonna say? I wanted to ask, let's move on from Bitcoin a bit, but with technology changing so fast, this is another kind of deep, profound topic here. How do you view technology going forward, 10, 20 years? Like, obviously, there's lots of changes happening, AI, growing, impacting us more and more. But like, have you like thought about the flip side? Like, are there negatives? Are there downsides to kind of technology? What are your thoughts kind of with that?
We're living in hyperchange. That is my thought. And I think that will be the defining, vibe of the era, is hyperchange, and that it's really hard to comprehend. And I think a lot of people are scared about AI, revolution, Twitter, and this is too powerful, fake news, clickbait. I think there's a lot of focus on the negativity, on what social media does, bad for our health. Teens are depressed. So I think there's a lot of ways to get depressed about VR and the way we're moving to a more sedentary lifestyle, and like the more of our enjoyment in our lives as humans occurs in the digital realm versus the real realm. That is kind of a scary proposition to many, but is that scary because we're Luddites, or is that scary, like maybe this is just our evolution, we should embrace it. And so I think this is a fascinating time. And to me, the flip side is the optimism of like, you and me are creators. I built my business from scratch on the internet, leveraging all this technology, and I feel like I'm doing the right thing, and I'm, educating people in a good way. And so are you. And like, it's almost an amazing tool. There's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur, to be a creator, to have a scheme, to have a vision that you want to build. And I can touch 10 billion people with it instantly because the whole world's connected. And because there's a global supply chain of China and the US trading, and all the pollution we hate also supplies all the products we love. And so I think there's like the flip side to all of this where it's the greatest time to be alive. And that's like the core of my beliefs is like, you can hate on it, but I think that trend only continues. I think humanity is in the golden era, and that's what nobody's talking about. And this is all incredible. And who cares about who's president? Like, maybe the apocalypse will hit and everything will go to shit. But if it doesn't, you have no excuse not to be living your best life, because there's so much opportunity. Like that's my, so I really truly have more optimism. And I think the human race is crushing it. Like humans, like, we got computers, we're connected, we're going to go to Mars. Like, we're dealing with some bullshit, but I think there's a lot of optimism. These monkeys are going to go to a new rock. We're going to go to space and colonize space. Like, there's so much excitement as a human in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years because of technology.
Got it.
And so I'm really trying to embrace it,
Okay. So what do you say, or what's your thoughts on kind of like a whole segment of society that is feeling ostracized and left out and left behind, in a sense, from all of this change? Because not so much that they aren't taking advantage of it, because they are watching their Netflix, they are playing their games, they are ordering on Amazon, they are Google searching and whatever, but they're not like taking, or they're not benefiting with all this tech change as much as those, for example, closer to urban centers with education, who are in the tech scene, or who are employed by companies that are taking advantage of these technology changes. And so you've got people, closer to cities with high salaries, with stock, in those companies that they're working for, and they are buying real estate, and that real estate's going up because those cities are growing well. And so you have this whole segment of society that's close to the tech and the change. And the reality is that it would be awesome if everyone had that initiative on their own to be independent, to go after it wherever they are. But the reality is most people tend to be followers and want to work for a company, etc. And so you have, this whole group of people, educated, working in cities, getting richer, benefiting extremely for that with tech change and, as you say, hyper change. But then you have another whole part of society and segment of society that is not even within 500 miles of a legit tech company, and is completely lost. And sure, there are the rare cases, or not the rare cases, but the isolated minority cases where people, they make their own path. They create something, they build something, and they from some no-name town, etc. But the reality is hey, if most people need some help, they need some direction, some leadership, etc. They're not around. These companies that benefit from tech, they're seeing their jobs being antiquated, their wages are stagnant, just getting by is getting more difficult. And so you've got this two class, tension happening in society. So how can you, what's your response? What are your thoughts with that?
Yeah. Oh, I connect with that so strongly. And when you said something about they all want to work for a company, and they're not all entrepreneurs and have their own initiative, I actually think that's wrong. I actually think they do want to work. They do have their own initiative. And I feel like there's these candles all across the country that just aren't lit, and they just need to get lit with some inspiration about this opportunity that exists. And then that's kind of the thing that needs to spark it. And that's what I'm so pumped about Starlink and what Elon Musk is doing, giving internet to every person. I've always believed it's if you can get a laptop with internet to every kid, that's what I got my start with and I literally set up a blog, started my penny stock website, started trading stocks, started learning, started Googling. That's just how I did everything. And so I just think that I'm so passionate about that. Get more internet and get more computers to everybody, because I think we need to make everybody have a chance. But then the flip side is I don't know, that makes me worried about, what's it called? That where we give everyone money every month.
UBI. Yeah.
Yeah. Universal basic income is a little bit troublesome, because it's well, where's the incentive go? And so, does that kill a lot of the incentive in society? Are we rewarding laziness? Does that make you want to vote for the politician who just gives you more money? I really worry about that disincentive alignment, because on the flip side, I'm but there's a lot of people who just aren't, I don't know. This is something I really struggle with, honestly, because it's there's a clearly this kind of 1%, and it was the 1% thing, the tech elite, sort of these tech people with equity in tech companies are diverging from mainstream America, and it's causing a lot of tension.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm a huge believer in the power of tech. I mean, like, I grew up in actually Silicon Valley, um, and I like caught the vision of what technology can do very early on. And so it's like I think the internet is by far the greatest invention ever created by humans. Still underappreciated, you know? People just don't understand like the concept, exactly what the internet is, you know? It's much more powerful and profound than people realize to be connected with the whole world and for an unlimited amount of information or data to be transferred from any spot to any person in the world at any time. You know, this has never happened in the history of the world, but it's rarely been imagined in the history of the world that something like this is possible, you know? And so the opportunities are unlimited. You know, they're truly profound.
Yes.
And if a
Yes.
and I get your point, like if you catch that the opportunities are truly profound and unlimited, it's the best time in history for opportunity in that sense, right? It's the most equal opportunity in history in some ways because it's like anyone can start a YouTube channel, anyone can start a blog, anyone can start a website, etc. And so, you know, and we're going to see a ton of innovations with technology to improve, you know, health, education, wellness, all sorts of stuff. But I still feel like there's a large group of society that, for example, maybe haven't been, I guess, um, uh, don't have stability. For example, you have one kid who's growing up and he has stable parents and he's getting some education. He gets a computer and the internet and he has some ideas and vision. He has some decent, healthy influences around him and he's able to see some potential. There's another kid who's like, hey, it's a broken family, has violence, you know, father or mother in prison, etc., on drugs. He has his brothers, all bad influences, etc. His school sucks. He hates, you know, everything, and he sees no potential. He doesn't have the mentors, you know, and there's, you know, rampant just like the culture and everything around him he doesn't have opportunity, you know, like for someone to see the opportunity, they need a certain level of like, I guess, um, stability or safety or something. But when you're just so sucked into like just negativity around you and just surviving and just um, that kind of worries me that that even though technology is so powerful and amazing, that it seems like there could be some requirements that are needed to actually, you know, take full advantage of that. And and this kind of whole segment of society that's, in my opinion, that's getting left behind in a way. Some of that sure could be they they need to step it up, you know, and see the vision, and as you say, light the candle and really take steps
Mhm.
to own their future and their destiny. But then there's a whole another part of that group where it's like I'm thinking maybe the problems are deeper than, you know, than a quick fix. And I don't know, it's like, and technology is great when you look at it from the top side and when you look at it from like the side of people getting out of those places. But when you look at it from the bottom, it's like in some ways, can technology be exacerbating some of the distance, some of the wealth divide, some of the tension, you know, in our society? Yeah, what are your thoughts there?
You know, I keep thinking Elon Musk, as much as his great contributions will be to technology, maybe
Mm,
inspiration is just as much of a gift to humanity, of like inspiring all these people of what's possible, of the odds you can overcome. You know, I really think there's
mhm,
like, and that's what I'm really passionate about Hyperchange. It's much about me teaching people how to invest, but it's also about like
mhm,
me nerding out on my own thing, like going to stockholder meetings,
mhm,
like you can follow your own passion, do your own thing, and have this amazing life, and like be in the driver's seat of your life. Like I want to show people that, but
mhm.
like not tell them to do an investing YouTube channel, like to inspire them to do it in their own way. And so
Sure.
that's another huge part of Hyperchange why I'm so pumped is like I want to give people the blueprint and inspiration to kind of inspire them in their own way. But uh, I mean, it's so. I had one point that I wanted to think of the Elon Musk.
Yeah, I was actually, you can think. So I had this thought of like, yeah, I wonder like if someone like Elon Musk can do something like, and you're talking about the whole inspiration, which is super powerful too. But I'm wondering if there's also like a lot of times we rely on the government to solve our
Yeah,
problems. You know what I'm saying?
that was my next segue. It's kind
Okay,
of like
go for it. Actually,
that
yeah,
that is the debate, and I think
yeah,
politics is such a fascination with me, because I think
mm-hmm,
in some places of the world, battery technology, we're advancing so quickly, but in terms of
mm-hmm,
governance and politics and how well that's working, it's really sad to me. And so I don't know. I just think there's so much opportunity, and like, well, okay, I'm trying to think of how to say this correctly, but like, to me, when you boil down Democrats and Republicans, it's
mm-hmm,
how much taxes do we want to pay? How much
mm-hmm,
wealth do we want to redistribute? And so to me, this is so much more than a quick question. This is like the deep question of, like, we have all these billionaires in society, we have all these people not connected. Like, how can we redistribute the wealth? And I get the I hate billionaires thing.
yeah,
But I also hate that. Like, I'm like, no, like, we need to incentivize Elon Musk to be a billionaire because he wants to go
yeah,
to Mars and do his thing, and that's why he's going to save the world. Like, we need to
mm-hmm,
totally have that incentive system. But how do we also create a system where those billionaires, like, I'm going to pay way more taxes than Donald Trump this year. I'm going to pay so many taxes. I'll be like 50% tax rate, and I love it. And I'm like
uh-huh,
happy to pay it because
uh-huh,
I have roads, I'm safe, like, I'm helping people in need because it redistributes a little bit. Like,
uh-huh,
raise my taxes. I'm pumped. Like, I have too
yeah,
much. Like, I don't know. Like, and maybe that makes me sound like a crazy socialist or like
mm-hmm,
Democrat, but I don't think so. I think it's not political at all. It's just like, I have enough that I need to live comfortably, and like,
mm-hmm,
yeah, I would love to redistribute that to people who don't, because we're all humans and we're in this together. And like, I just think there's a really honest conversation that needs to happen there about, we're humans. Let's figure out how to redistribute this correctly, not through the veil of Democrat or Republicans.
yeah,
But that's why I also give a lot more weight to this, political argument than a lot of people realize. It's like, yeah, this is a big deal. This is a super deep thing. This is something
mm-hmm,
everyone should really think about and be passionate about. Is their philosophy for how our society regulates all of us? Like, yeah,
mm-hmm,
we should, be passionate about that. So I don't know. An area that's ripe for hyperchange is politics. There's no doubt about it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Who do you think is gonna win the election, or what's your take on the whole thing?
My take on the election is it's way too hard to vote. I'm just a millennial who's like trying to figure out how to vote. And I'm like, dude, like, this is just
Uh-huh,
way too hard to vote. I don't,
uh-huh,
regardless of anything. And I think America is frankly will totally fail and doom itself if we do not have a democracy. I feel like this is maybe a controversial take, but to me, it's not. The fact that
mm-hmm,
we keep putting the person in power with less votes is so dumb. Like, I haven't even voted in previous elections because I live in California, or I lived in Washington and New York and
mm-hmm,
California for a couple summers. But like, it wouldn't have mattered. So I didn't even vote.
yeah,
So the actual
mm-hmm,
disparity between our popular vote and who's elected president is huge. Like, we keep consistently putting in power the person who less Americans have voted for. This has happened several times in my lifetime. And I think this is going to be the greatest flaw in American democracy. And it's going to be so simple. It's like the whole system was, we vote for the person with most votes goes in. We stopped following that and we went to shit. And so it's kind of a hot take. I don't know why,
uh-huh,
but to me, this will be the greatest flaw. And this is why I'm kind of pissed with America, is because
mm-hmm,
I'm a citizen. I pay a huge amount of taxes, way outsized for how much I am a citizen,
mm-hmm,
yet my vote means nothing. And so how many elections am I going to be in where I'm paying a ton of taxes, yet you don't count my vote at all because I live in a city that's generating way more economic value than other cities, and everyone's voting? I don't know. Like, I'm also honestly not Democrat or Republican. Like, I don't want
mm-hmm,
to lean either way. Like, I'm just,
yeah,
I hate the two-party system. I think people need to think for themselves, but I don't know. I wish more smart people were thinking and focusing about politics. And even I've kind of stayed away from it, but I want to offer my two
yeah,
cents to you and on this channel
yeah,
for
yeah,
people, because I think we need to break the taboo of, let's talk about politics. Like,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think, like, you want to vote for Trump, you want to vote for Biden, I don't care. I'm not going to hate you no matter what.
yeah, yeah,
I won't hate you based on who you vote for. Like, I think
yeah,
that should, that should be
yeah.
step one.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like, I'm actually, like, politics is gotta be like the most, like, it's like when I talk about politics, actually, I get the worst amount of views on my videos. Um, it's just that people, I don't know, just especially on an investing channel, I guess, don't want to hear about too much. But I feel like I need to address it because it's like I think it's an underestimated part of what's going on. And
Oh, yeah.
and I think if you ignore what's going on politically, not just in the US, but around the world, you miss out on a lot of what's happening. And yeah, so I don't know. It's deeply concerning to me, like, for example, the gridlock that our whole political system is in. We're not able to be productive. And that's concerning because, like, if you have a company that doesn't get any work done for like 15 years or something, it's like that's not good news. Exactly, And you have other companies or countries that get work done, very fast. I mean, it's just obvious, what's going to happen, And I think like,
China.
yeah, yeah, exactly. and and it's like I fear that our country is like tempted by this easy way out. Oh, just print more money, have extra trillion here, extra trillion there, and just like we can create more jobs that way, And it's like it seems like a cop out. It seems like, hey, just here's our credit card, just swipe our credit card and we'll deal with it later. Versus like, hey, let's make some really competent decisions right now to look at what's really happening and become one of the best at it. Let's be one of the best companies or countries out there in terms of how productive and how much we move forward on the big problems that we're facing. But that to me is like one of the core issues of our country. Is like we've lost complete sight of that. Complete sight of competency, productiveness, like execution in terms of a company as a company. Like in terms of a country, no one cares about that anymore. It feels like, it's like
well, Tesla does. That's what that got me so hyped about the Tesla Battery Day, and I think was one of the most underappreciated things of all the videos they showed of like these bottling factories and these crazy manufacturing plants, and it was like this was our inspiration. Like we want to bring back the golden age of manufacturing, and like that gets me so excited. The amount of like I almost want to have a chart. I actually started like last night. I was kind of like in this weird mood, and I decided to like start writing this book about my version of the Tesla investment story, kind of like a rant book, like the other one. I don't know, probably nothing will happen with it, but I just got so passionate about like we're all so focused on how to fix the world, yet so little attention is given to Tesla. And to me, it's like they're solving so much of what the world needs. Nobody in the debate mentioned Tesla. No presidential candidates mentioned it. They're the biggest manufacturing company, growing like crazy, changing our whole energy system, making us sustainable, bringing all the smartest people in the world to America to work for them. Like this is literally, if you were an alien looking down at where the value is being created in America right now, you were like, Elon Musk, let us funnel, like this dude is raising money from the stock market to fund his shit. No way. We need to be giving this guy as much money as possible. He should be building hyperloops in every city.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's I don't know. So I feel like there's a lot of room left on the table there. But I really, I'm optimistic though, because in some ways, this free market system that is so gridlocked has actually led to the birth of Tesla. I don't know if it's because the aliens gave us Elon Musk or what, but I mean, this Battery Day got me hyped. Like we are going to solve the grid system, green. This is the Green New Deal. And it's going to pay for itself because Tesla's going to do it. Like the Green New Deal isn't a political thing. It's Battery Day. That is the Green Tesla's the Green New Deal.
Yeah, it's the cheapest Green New Deal ever. I mean, like you don't need to spend trillions of dollars. I mean, can you imagine like what Elon Musk would do with like $2 trillion, like if you gave it to him, like, it's like give the government $2 trillion to spend on so-called whatever green energy, climate change initiatives. Compare that to what Elon Musk would do with even $10 billion, like look what he did with Tesla, and like as you're saying, like who's moving the needle, like forward the most, right? Is it really these governments, whatever, or is it really like private enterprise, who is combining with kind of consumer behavior and the whole market system to provide and aligning with technology and innovation to provide a far superior product and innovative product that is better than the current product, but also is better for the world together, right? So, I mean, that's the thing. It's like Elon Musk is not just providing a better product for the consumer, but he's doing it also for the world. So it's like a double whammy, right? And he didn't even use that much money. Like people complain that, oh, Tesla's like a money suck, whatever. It's like for the amount of impact that they've done, it's like the cheapest investment ever, for the world, impact of the world.
The most efficient at spending money of anyone in the world.
Exactly.
That is what it's going to go down as. The amount of value he's going to create, the amount of technology Tesla's going to build with that little amount of money.
Yeah.
Nobody's writing that story, but
no one. I don't think people in general get it. But we're gonna have to look back 20, 30 years maybe for people to like understand like the impact. We're
gonna be like, shit. I wish Gali and Dave were in charge of the economic plan in 2021 because they would have killed it. Instead, we went off the rails, still investing in fracking. It's like, oh my God.
No, seriously, man. I want to talk about. I hope you're not completely fried in your brain yet, but. With Tesla, like, we talk about often the potential of Tesla, et cetera, but like, what about the risks of Tesla? Um, like personally, I think like in some ways, the higher the valuation that Tesla is at, there it poses actually there's some benefit because they're able to raise money, easier. They have like bigger market cap, more credibility, etc. But on the flip side, there's a lot of expectations built into that valuation,
Yeah.
right? So how do you see the risks of Tesla going forward? Like, are you concerned about any of them? Like, do you see one of them as particularly kind of like standoutish or?
So the biggest risks for Tesla were threefold. There was the financial risk, there was the fleet-wide hack or autopilot crashing risk, and Elon Musk dying risk. Frankly, I'm just being straight up. These are the three risks. Financial risk is off the table. That's perceived solvency. They were reliant in the capital markets, believing they would succeed to be able to continue raising money to fund their business plan. Now they can fund themselves internally. That's huge. Changes the game. Structurally, the cash flow profile of Tesla has a massive de-riskment. I think the equity markets are frankly a lot smarter than people give them credit for, and that's why that equity value of Tesla went up. Because it was like, yeah, the chance of them going to 2 trillion is almost like assured the second their financial thing works. So the second the Model 3 works, like of course the Model Y is going to work. And so you can kind of like extrapolate a lot of those cash flows. But so that's been solved. That's amazing. But you look at risk at Tesla, fleet-wide hack. Everything's connected. They're testing this autopilot software. If they move too fast, it hacks, it gets bad press. That's, I think, a lot of the risk there. But I think, they have a world-class enterprise cybersecurity team that's going to try and handle that. Second thing, Elon Musk. Every company I want to invest in, if they don't have a key man clause, if your key man dies and your company is still fine, I don't want to invest because it's not going to be a game-changing company. You need a visionary at the helm who is a key man. And so that is just Tesla. And so, as there's so little risk and it's so going well that it's sad to say that is the like, to me, really the biggest risk. Something happens to Elon.
Okay. So something happening to Elon, like, how do you like process that? Do you think it's just such a small risk that you don't really, think about it and it's just kind of not really, a big concern? Or do you actually think it's a legitimate, something to be concerned about?
I price it into the discount rate of my Tesla stock, but like I said, like, it's just like you can't have it any other way. You're not going to have the best visionary CEO in the world who's not a key man. So I just don't overthink it. And I'm like, yeah, like he's got security, he's young. Elon Musk has 20 years ahead of him to crush it, or 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Like what happens if Elon dies? Like suddenly.
Yeah. Oh
my God. Sorry for bringing this up. And this is no, sorry, man. Like and let's not.
No, but seriously, okay. So investor, okay, like I don't know.
And okay, I want to qualify this by saying like, I'm like, by far like I love Elon and want the best for him. I hope that he lives, the longest life possible. And this is.
But he would want us to do this analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Elon is an investor.
Sure.
His own company,
exactly.
He would think.
Yeah. So this is in no way personal or any way like this is purely on a investment type of analytical approach. Like, what if Elon is out of the equation? What happens to Tesla and the company, the valuation, the path forward? Like, what's your take?
Financially successful is huge. I think that means they're going to be fine. And frankly, you got Drew, you got Jerome, you got Martin, you have a culture of 40,000 people. I mean, I think this keeps crushing it. It's still going to change the world. That to me is the biggest, brightest news of like these past 2 years. Everyone thinks the world's going like this, but Tesla's going like this. Tesla went from like this thing that nobody thought was going to succeed to like, I'm like, no matter what, they're going to change the industry. Volkswagen, GM, whatever, they're already investing. Rivian's already putting the money. Bezos already wants to beat Elon at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bezos can't wait to be the EV guy if Elon's out of the equation. It's going to happen. It's so to me, the actual victory of us changing the world, maybe it's a question of how many years we can really accelerate the transition off fossil fuels.
Yeah.
But the fact that Tesla is moving that needle and we have become the de facto force pushing this fossil fuel transition like away from fossil fuels faster, pushing the whole auto industry to it, pushing battery technology forward, which increases the energy efficiency. Like to me, the war's already been won. And so I think Tesla could frankly execute until 2030 and still grow 5 trillion even without him. And that's just like a testament to the work Elon's done to this point, is because it would still look at Apple. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't
Sure.
think Tim Cook's really created all that value. I think it's just, these as long as, these things are hard to kill once you start them,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
change the world.
Yeah, yeah. So 5 trillion in 2030 without Elon? You think that's possible even?
Maybe,
Maybe.
but it's like, I'm gonna be waking up every day to
Yeah,
analyze
yeah.
it to figure out if they're on that track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
exactly. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I feel like in some ways, like short-term wise, I feel like if we're in like a kind of a high stock price area, then if Elon, let's say, like suddenly passes or etc., I think we do have quite a large fall, short-term wise,
oh, there's
especially
definitely
yeah,
like
if we're
yeah, it's a drop for
yeah,
sure.
it's gonna be it won't be pretty. Um, if we're in a low stock price type of environment where moves pessimistic, etc., and Elon passes, then I don't think we have as much of a drop, in my opinion, because I think there's certain value that's like intrinsic to Tesla, and there's certain things that are more like highly likely even without Elon to happen. I think like if with Elon out of the equation, a lot of the optionality that I value in Tesla disappears in some ways, or is much harder to to be realized. And what I mean is, for example, like with Elon at the helm, it's like so many things are possible that we haven't even thought about right now. You know?
Yes. And this is the perfect time to change the subject to like,
Go for it.
it's not about if Elon goes away or in a negative way. It's like, this is why we love Elon.
Sure,
Because
sure,
this is how
exactly,
much value he adds. He is
exactly,
the
yeah,
never expiring call option of the
He's
greatest inventor of all time, whose cash
exactly,
flows we get in perpetuity because we own this stock. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? You've got this guy who has figured it out how to create value from nothing. Like he's figured out the principles where he's like, hey, you find out, you get in touch with technology, you see, you create value, you have this awesome team of the smartest people in the world come together, you push them with tangible goals, and you fund them, and you lead them with inspiration, and you get like some amazing things that can happen. And he's just reproducing this model, like over and over with Boring Company, with Neuralink, with whatever. And he's doing that inside Tesla, but people aren't fully catching it, Like he's starting all of these new ventures, new companies in a sense inside
Oh yeah.
Tesla. And people like it's so out of the box. They can't get it because it looks like just one company, Tesla, and it looks like just cars right now. But behind the scenes, Elon is just like doing the same thing, starting all these new ventures inside the company that aren't fully like realized in value yet, and some of them take a long time. Like for example, Solar Roof. It's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I was at the reveal, and I'm like, hey, this is gonna take a while to get better and for it to grow and ramp, because I'm like, it's a hard product. Like this thing is tough. Like if I was like in this business, I wouldn't want to do it because it's like so daunting to make a roof that's like stable and doesn't have problems, and with doesn't even have a high margin in a sense. It's just one of these like things that no one wants to get into. But Elon is like, this is a new company. Solar Roof is a new company, right? Tesla Energy Storage is a new company. Autonomy is a new company, like robotaxi, all this stuff. And like, I think we take for granted that, hey, all this stuff will like will happen, right? And I think the more mature stuff and the stuff that has already kind of passed the tipping point will happen. Like for example, autonomy will happen, the vehicles will happen, Tesla Energy will happen. But there are a lot of things that are still like haven't passed that maturity point of to have its own momentum, and it needs kind of like the Elon Musk kind of like touch. Like for example, HVAC, Tesla HVAC, like it's not gonna without Elon,
Yes.
it might not happen. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, exactly. That's a
yeah,
perfect example.
it's like Tesla RV, without Elon, I don't know. With Elon, like lots of things can happen, like vertical takeoff and landing jet. Like without Elon, this isn't happening, at Tesla. With Elon, like there's a very good chance that like I peg it at like 70-80% that actually goes under Tesla. But all of this optionality, option call, the value of all this extra innovation and stuff, it does damper the company, in my opinion, in some ways, and in significant ways. Like as you're talking about, it's like a discussion of how valuable Elon really is to the company. Like he is like a key man. Like he is bringing so much of that value to that company in terms of future possibility and growth, and that's why every dollar that he earns, every share of stock that he earns with his compensation plan is completely worth it. Because he's delivering value that other people just can't deliver. Like you take almost any other CEO in the world, stick him in the same spot, it's going to be a completely different company and completely different strategy, right? I mean, Elon carries with him, something that is rare, and I think without him, I think Tesla, the more mature stuff does well, but we lose a lot of the excitement, the unlimited potential of the company, that we have, like that captures our imagination in a sense right now.
Yeah. And people always like gave hate for Tesla being in the startup mode. Like that's always what how I describe it. Like they're in this startup mode, but that's really what I think it is. Like it's even as big as they were, it was still a venture capital bet on the entrepreneur and the founder. And I love that, that's a lesson I really took back on my investing is like the greatest asset or liability a company has is not on its balance sheet. It's who's in the boardroom. It's who's in that CEO position, and they will dictate more value than anything else. Yeah. And, I don't know. And that's just, to me, the case study of Tesla has dictated that even more. And you think about the internet, the amount of technology available, the way there's 8 billion of us, the statistical probability that one of us is going to be so smart and so good at executing and so good at business is just higher and higher. There's that outlier. Like, you get this incredible once in a many generation potentially person of Elon Musk still at 48 years old. Like, it just blows my mind. And I tell my friends all the time, like, he's going to be one of the most important people. We might forget about Steve Jobs. Like, he's basically Jesus because he's going to fucking save us and we're going to go to Mars and go to sustainable energy. Like, sorry if I shouldn't swear, but yeah. But anyway, like, I think the one thing that I believe that no one else believes, to get back to kind of our core thing, is that Elon Musk is one of the most important humans who will ever live, at least up until the point where we've been alive. Sure. And I just think that's kind of, it's not actually like people don't believe that.
Yeah. It's like, I think when you look back, like in 20 or 30 years, it's just going to be like so obvious, like you're going to see like just Tesla, and not just Tesla, but you can see SpaceX, you can see Boring Company, you see Neuralink, and there's going to be other stuff, that happens, and it's going to be so obvious. This is all based on the some assumptions that he lives, until that time, etc. But it's going to be so obvious because the things that he's working on and the way he works is like so like methodical and so directed at the most important problems that will give so much value, but also are some of the most difficult problems that other people don't want to tackle. And so, and I love it how he's able to take more risk because he has, more assets. He can afford to, lose billion here, billion there. But, and he's leveraging his reputation to bring the smartest people together for new ventures, etc. And it's like, with like, for example, with the iPhone and Steve Jobs, you look back, 13 years now, and you're like, it's obvious, like the iPhone changed the world. It's just like, and Steve Jobs had a major impact. But it's like what Elon is doing is like, I think it's not just on a different level, but it's on multiple levels. It's like Steve Jobs was like kind of more singular focus. Sure, he did Pixar and etc. But with Elon, his scale of the problems he's solving is so big in magnitude. It's like global, historical, and he's willing to take on the hardest of the problems out there. I think that, in a sense, is going to be his legacy. Is going to be like this. Here's a guy who took on the biggest problems. The hardest problems, and he found a way to do it, not by himself, obviously, but by leveraging and bringing together the best, the smartest people in the world. But yeah, we're definitely in some interesting times, and it's definitely a privilege to like be part of it.
I know. And I feel like the only person that will have a greater impact and be ever like so richer than Elon Musk will be just the person he inspires. And to me, that is what's so amazing about Elon is like this timeline of humanity, and I feel like we've really bifurcated
Yeah.
on a timeline literally because of a single human of like, we're going to go to space, we're going to be renewable way faster, like governments weren't doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I came into Tesla and all of this of like the investor mindset, studying who are the entrepreneurs building these companies, how can I analyze them? And as a student of the game, it's been so fascinating to see how just spending my life studying this, no one compares to Elon Musk. There was just no one in second place. There was not anyone else close to him. He is so special and unique. You're at his Tesla shareholder meeting, somebody asked him about whether they're going to enter India. I just remember this stuck in my mind. He gave the most detailed answer about import restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was had this aha moment of like, what other CEO would get so down to the weeds on this one thing while running you just sit there and you watch him talk for 3 hours, and the level of detail he has about the things his company is doing. He's not even a CEO. This dude's an engineer. He's an inventor. He's not when they call him a billionaire, it's like, dude, you're missing the greatest intro of all time of we have the greatest inventor ever, Elon Musk. Yeah. And he doesn't just invent shit in his lab. He actually builds it for 10 million people. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, this is, and it makes sense because we're bigger than ever. We're moving faster than ever. Our GDP is bigger than ever. We have more people than ever. We're going to have that bigger outlier than ever.
Yeah.
We're more connected than ever. It's easier to build and accrue value faster than ever. Yeah. There's more tools to let you manage 5 companies than ever. You can take a private jet to 6 HQs at once. Of course it makes sense that there's the guy doing this when you look at it through this lens of how the possibilities. And so, but to tie it back, I just think truly, it sounds scary to say, but I do think humans are moving on a new timeline because of Elon Musk and what he's doing and how he's inspiring because of what he's doing, all these people to think in his way. And for,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. I'll go ahead and we've talked about a lot of stuff here.
Did I wear you out?
No.
You tap out before I tap out.
Got it. Actually, I have more stuff here actually. But here's what I'll do is this has been a great conversation. I want to first, say thanks to, being open with your time. For those who don't know, I reached out to Gali and I'm like, hey, I want to try this long form conversation, kind of 2 or 3 hours, Joe Rogan style, just going off of topics, whatever, interests us and just seeing where it goes. Now I'm I wanted to experiment because I think something about long form, it tests the depths of some person's topics or interest and, thoughts in some ways. And I think, so I totally appreciate you coming on here. Appreciate it a lot.
Dude, thank you so much. I'm almost now I'm all charged up. I'm bro, you got 6 more hours of content to go. We're just getting, this is the warm up, bro. I can't wait for round 2. But
all right,
sounds
so good.
For having me.
Yeah. All right, Gali, thanks a lot. And we'll go ahead and wrap up here. And for those who don't know, Gali's YouTube channel is Hyperchange. You could type that in on Twitter. The handle's out on the screen right here. G Filch, right? Is it?
Filchy, yeah.
Joe Filchy. What does that stand for?
It's Seattle slang is filthy means cool. And so in high school, my friends and I decided to make it Filchy because it sounds even cooler. And so it just kind of stuck, became its own word.
Got it. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you, Gali, and we'll see all of you guys. All right.
Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.